All right, the other big story here this weekend involves Bobby Allison and his departure from the Dygar team.
Well, the bottom line is that Dygar and Bobby have gotten together, and they've decided to prematurely allow Bobby out of his contract. Now, both are here this weekend. Bobby Allison comes in a car which was actually built for his son and normally runs an ARCA competition. Now, those of you who follow NASCAR racing will recognize the red and white Miller, number 22. Dygar is here. The brand new driver for the rest of 1985, announced as Greg Sachs, the guy that won in the Gardner R&D car at Daytona. The new number, 77. The car will look exactly like Bobby's.
More on this story as we go down to the pit area once again. Here is Jack Arute.
Well, thank you, Bob. You've been talking about the Miller American entry for Dygar Racing. The driver, of course, is Greg Sachs, a modified standout from up north. But, Greg, there's got to be some additional pressure upon you running in this car. You won in the R&D car, but this is the main mount.
Well, yes, it is. I tell you, it's a great feeling to be here in the Miller American Quaker State car. I've got my crew coming in to me right now, and it's hard for me to hear what you're saying, but this is a great day for me.
Well, you can be sure that Greg Sachs will be putting to the pedal to the metal, because what he told me before is, hey, I'm 1 for 1 for Dygar Racing. Let's go back upstairs.
Thank you, Jack. The Summer 500 is being brought to you by and by Goodyear, makers of the high-performance radio, the Eagle. Pre-race activity in just a moment when we come back to Pocono International Raceway for today's running of the Summer 500. Welcome back to Pocono International Raceway, where the command has just been given to start the engines, and 40 cars roar to life along the pit road. They'll be going out for a couple of warm-up laps and then the green flag for 200 laps around this 2.5-mile racetrack. 40 cars ready to go, and now let's introduce to you the starting lineup for today's National NASCAR 100.0 miles an hour from Clinton to row number 1 will be Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Georgia, in the number 9 Coors Melling Ford. In row 2, Timmonsville, South Carolina, in the Hardee's Ford will be Cale Yarborough, car number 28. Outside of row number 2, from Ellerby, North Carolina, in the Fast Fair Copenhagen Chevrolet, car 55, Benny Parsons. In the third row, car number 44, the Piedmont Airlines Chevrolet, Terry Labonte from Archdale, North Carolina. Outside of row number 3, car number 27, driven by Tim Richmond from Dooley, North Carolina, the old Milwaukee Pontiac. In row number 4, Harry Gant, car number 33, the Kmart Skoll Bandit Chevrolet. Harry's from Taylorsville, North Carolina. Outside of row number 4, Ron Bouchard from Pittsburgh, Massachusetts, the number 47 Valvoline Race Hill Farms Buick. Row number 5, Bobby Hillen Jr. from Midland, Texas, car number 8, the Trap Rock Industries Chevrolet. Outside of row number 5, Ricky Rudd, car number 15, the Motorcraft Ford. Ricky's from Chesapeake, Virginia. In the 6th row, car number 3, the Wrangler GM Goodwrench Chevrolet, driven by Dale Earnhardt from Mooresville, North Carolina. Outside of row number 6, car number 77, the Miller American Dygar Buick, Greg Sachs from Mattituck, New York. In the 7th row, Rusty Wallace, car number 2, the Alugard Spectrum Furniture Pontiac. Outside of row number 7, from Richard Petty, the number 43 STP Pontiac. He's from Randleman, North Carolina. Outside of row number 8, car number 75, the Nationwide Auto Parts Pontiac, driven by Lake Speed from Jackson, Mississippi. Row number 9 in today's starting lineup, Bill Parsons in number 66 and Buddy Baker in 88. The 10th row consists of Tommy Ellis in car number 18, Ken Schrader in number 90. The 11th row, car number 12, Neil Bonnet, and number 5, Jeff Bodine. The 12th row, car number 22, Bobby Allison alongside Kyle Petty in number 7. The 13th row, Lenny Pond in number 17 and Dave Marcus in 71. The 14th row, Buddy Arrington in 67 and Trevor Boys in car number 49. Row number 15, car 64, Clark Dwyer, and 6, Ed Mearshwale. The 16th row, car 51, Doug Hebron, and 20. The 17th row, Don Hume, number 48, and me, number 52. Row 18, car 96, Bowman, and 74, Bobby Waywack. The 19th row, Mike Starchick, number 87, and Rick Newsom, number 20. And in row number 20, the final row, car number 70, driven by J.D. McDuffie, and then driven by Joe Boer. Our in-car camera today is with Lake Speed in that number 75 Nationwide Auto Parts Pontiac Race.
Lake Speed, new bro, and you'll about in-car. Problem cars between us with the car, but coming through really finest pictures we've had, Bob. I'll tell you on some BM broadcast.
Should be an not because position. Jeff Bodine, who starts back in position.
Bodine is Mr. Nuber up in this BN Tower. You got a reading on us?
Sure do, Larry.
Well, Jeff, I'll tell you, you got a lot of people watching you. Just a little extra pressure on you.
I take this again for Larry to look ahead of us. This race here. We've got a lot of before
the tunnel turn. Good luck.
Side hit will be bonded in number 20. Is right there on that number 2 American. Well, the cars are now in between turns 2 North Straightaway at 1,700 feet in length. They're being led, of course, pace car. However, the out that we could go green around 2-lap race. Of course, indicated use anywhere hours and minutes to 4 and 30 minutes. Field pace should be pulled to the of the racetrack and headed for the pit area, but yeah. Pocono is way through the mile. Now 18 degrees of banking. Turn 1. The turn is 5 feet of radius. As they come off of corner number 1, it's Darrell Waltrip who has the lead, battling side by side for that second position. It looks like it's Bill Elliott and Cale Yarborough. Waltrip with the slight advantage as they head down the North Pond straightaway, 3,100 feet in length, and now going into corner number 2, called the tunnel turn. It is 8 degrees of banking and 750 feet of radius. Waltrip still leading with Bill Elliott running second, and look at Benny Parsons making it a 3-abreast contest for the second position. Benny Parsons blasts into second spot, Bill Elliott in third, Cale Yarborough in fourth. Now the leader, Darrell Waltrip, is headed for turn number 3, only 6 degrees of banking. There is Lake Speed's in-car camera as he battles behind number 12 of Neil Bonnet, heading for turn number 1.
Just some reflections on lap number 1. It was a great start. Everybody stayed in line. You notice that Neil Bonnet was the first one to kind of break ranks and look down to the inside. Nothing happened. There is Bill Elliott right behind Benny Parsons. I would classify Elliott's lap number 1 as courageous. He sat on the outside all the way around the racetrack, including through the tunnel corner, down to the short stretch, and into turn number 3, and stuck there. Could be a harbinger for things to come.
Neil Bonnet is a man on the move. He started in 21st position, was up to 17th at the end of the first lap, and continues his charge toward the front. There he is, Neil Bonnet, car number 12, running behind Lake Speed and Dale Earnhardt.
And there's Richard Petty on the outside in the familiar blue and orange number 43, and Bonnet dropping down off the inside of the racetrack in turn number 3. Now he's trying to trap by David Pearson. You see the row of like a flock of geese right behind him. 2, 3, and 4 abreast staggered. But Bonnet is the die on that path. There he is on the right-hand side of your screen, looking through the inside of Bobby Hillin Jr. No, that's Greg Sachs. Correction on that. That was Greg Sachs, number 77. There's Bobby Hillin Jr., who qualified so very well this weekend here at Pocono. And look at Bonnet right between traffic.
That is Dale Earnhardt to the inside of the racetrack. David Pearson in the number 21. Neil Bonnet is moving up quickly in that number 12. He's now up to 13th position. Benny Parsons, meanwhile, goes to the inside of Darrell Waltrip in turn number 2, and Benny Parsons has gone into the lead.
Well, on the first lap going back again, remember that Earnhardt, or rather Elliott and Yarborough went through the tunnel turn side by side. They were paying a lot of attention to each other. When they went over the tunnel turn, both cars were disrupted, and Benny stayed right behind, held his line. When both cars jumped out of line coming out of the tunnel turn, Benny was in a smooth position to draft past them. Now he goes to the inside of Darrell Waltrip. So the man who oftentimes sits up here in the booth with us, who has done very well at this racetrack, is looking real racing the early laps here at Pocono.
The first 6 cars are in a choo-choo train down the main straightaway. Parsons high on the racetrack now as Darrell Waltrip goes to the inside. Waltrip grabs back the lead just momentarily. Terry Labonte is smoking badly over in the Long Pond straightaway.
Terry Labonte, who has a personal history, and look at this battle up front. Away from Terry for just a second. Look at Yarborough come out of nowhere and go from 3rd to 1st. Waltrip follows him through. Richmond is right up there. Elliott's up there. Benny Parsons on the high side. 5 of them running under a blanket, like we used to say at the old Saturday night short tracks.
And that 6th car in line there is Terry Labonte, and although the car appears to be smoking badly, he's not getting off of the accelerator. He's staying right up there with the leaders. They come off of quarter number 3 once again. This will complete lap number 4. Now Labonte ducks to the inside and heads for the pits as Cale Yarborough leads Darrell Waltrip, Tim Richmond, Benny Parsons, and Bill Elliott across the finish line.
Tim Richmond now goes to the inside of Waltrip. Here's Terry Labonte pulling in the pits, and Jack DeRoot is there.
Well, Terry Labonte's car is now being jacked up. There's some smoke underneath the hood. One of the mechanics has crawled underneath his car. They've got jack stands under it. Labonte blew his good engine in the last practice late yesterday afternoon, so this is a new engine. They've got a large wrench under there. That ordinarily means they're tightening up an oil line. That is all they've done, is tighten one oil line. They're putting fuel in the car, slowly letting it off the jacks. Terry wants to go, and there he goes.
The defending Winston Cup champion goes back out onto the race course, but he has lost a considerable amount of time. Meanwhile, back out on the racetrack, once again, the cars are between turns 2 and 3, and Cale Yarborough is setting the pace with Tim Richmond running in 2nd spot. Here they are coming off of the 3rd turn. Speeds will reach 170 miles an hour at the end of this straightaway before they have to brake hard going into quarter number 1 and the 14 degrees of banking. Cale Yarborough continues to lead. There is Richmond right behind him. Waltrip, the pole sitter, is in 3rd spot. Benny Parsons 4th, and then Bill Elliott.
Bob, just an update now on Labonte. He came into the pits. He stopped under green. He did not lose a lap. Remember, it takes you about a minute to go around the Pocono 2.5 miles. Labonte is about 4/5 of a mile right now behind the leaders that you're looking at right now, with Cale Yarborough setting the pace. Labonte remains in the same lap. Now we expect him to go in the vicinity of 35 laps before the first regularly scheduled set of pit stops. So if Labonte can keep from being lapped, here comes Tim Richmond, by the way, while we're talking, going for the lead. Labonte will stay in the hunt for the rest of the afternoon.
Darrell Waltrip also tried to pass Cale Yarborough there in turn number 2, but was unable to. But Tim Richmond did get the job done, and Tim Richmond comes around and will apparently lead lap number 6. Richmond and Yarborough are both former winners here at Pocono International Raceway. As a matter of fact, so is Darrell Waltrip, and Benny Parsons also a win here.
There you see Bill Elliott taking a look down on the inside. By the way, 3 other cars have joined this pack right up in the front. The number 15 of Ricky Rudd, the number 47 of Ron Bouchard, and the number 33 of Harry Gant. So far, these 3 guys, plus Benny Parsons, have shown the ability to lead so far today. But the other 3 that I just mentioned are also right there with him.
And there is the in-car camera that we have today with Lake Speed. You can see right ahead of him is the 711 Ford driven by Kyle Petty. We turn the camera around and show you what's going on behind him. That is Phil Parsons trailing Lake Speed. And it looked like that Lake got the wheels down off of the racetrack there in turn number 2 just for a moment.
Absolutely, Bob. And you also got a good shot of how much the car is buffeted around when it goes over the tunnel turn. There are bad bumps on the inside of the racetrack, and you just have to grin and bear it when you soar over them at about 135, 40 miles an hour.
Back up front, it's Cale Yarborough that has regrabbed the lead. Richmond back to second, then Waltrip, and then Benny Parsons. They head for turn number 1 once again. We look for the first series of pit stops, by the way, somewhere around lap number 35, give or take a few laps either way. Cale Yarborough, the number 28, Hardee's Ford, has the lead, with Tim Richmond, who started this race in 6th position, has moved up to second after leading very briefly. We'll be back with more live coverage from Pocono in a moment. 8 out of 200 laps complete at the Summer 500. Cale Yarborough the lead, Tim Richmond second, Darrell Waltrip third, Benny Parsons is fourth, and Bill Elliott is running in 5th position. Now back in 9th and still moving up nicely is Neil Bonnet in the number 12 car. There he is. Harry Gant is right behind him. Bonnet has been passing cars at about a rate of 2 per lap, having started back in the 21st position. Neil Bonnet now up to 9th.
Well, while we look at Bonnet, you see Harry Gant also in the picture. And just a word about Harry. He's right there. And remember, the last 3 NASCAR races here at Pocono, Harry Gant has finished second, first, and second. So Harry Gant knows what to do here at Pocono in order to finish up front.
Tim Richmond with a momentary challenge there on Cale Yarborough between the second and third turns here. But Yarborough maintains the lead. This will complete lap number 9. They're pretty much stayed in this freight train or choo-choo train formation now, at least the first 5 cars for the last few laps. There you can see Benny Parsons moving down on the inside of Darrell Waltrip, and Benny Parsons moves into 3rd spot. Waltrip back to 4th, and Neil Bonnet also continuing to pass back of this group.
And we watch older bro Benny, younger bro Phil has pulled into the pits. Phil Parsons in the Skoal number 66 Bandit has pulled into the pits prematurely here. The left side of the car goes up. They're working on the tire on the left rear wheel, and I think that Phil feels as though that he had a tire go wrong on him there in the left quarter panel of the race car.
2 cars that started in the top 17, namely Terry Labonte and Phil Parsons, have made early pit stops here in the running of the Summer 500 at Pocono.
Caution flags often at this racetrack, if recent history is any indication, are just no help. There you see Cale Yarborough kicking up his heels in the dust coming out of turn number 3. But remember the last race here, the June race back here in 85, we had only 4 cautions for 11 laps and none until lap number 177. So Labonte and Phil Parsons may have a very, very tall, steep mountain to climb.
Neil Bonnet passed 3 cars the last lap, and he is now up to 6th position. An outstanding performance here in the early going by Neil Bonnet. Let's go down to Jack Arute, who's with Tim Brewer, Neil Bonnet's crew chief.
And Tim Brewer is the team manager for the Budweiser Chevrolet that Neil Bonnet is controlling today. Tim, it looks like you gave him a green light to go to the front, kind of like the old days with Cale Yarborough.
Well, Jackie, we've had a little problem up here with a brand new car. We lost the motor qualifying. So, you know, we're trying to get things turned around, so we're going to lean on it pretty hard today.
What about concern by putting an untested, untried engine in like you've got there? Any concerns there?
No, we got a pretty good engine staff and all the guys back in the shop, and if we were a little bit leery of it, it wouldn't be on a truck in the first place. So, you know, we've got all the faith in the world, and it's we're going to fire a shot at them.
Well, they fired a shot that's been heard so far.
Well, the shot is definitely heard by the Junior Johnson crew because Neil Bonnet has just passed Darrell Waltrip. Bonnet now rests in 5th position.
Getting way low going into turn number 1. Not only did it kick up dust that time, but you saw the smoke. What happens is when the tires, of course, slip off the pavement, they lose some traction, and it's like a jet landing. When you get back onto the pavement, the tire's going to kick up again, and I think that's probably what happened with Neil right there. Just a wisp of smoke, nothing to worry about.
Neil Bonnet running in 5th position. 2 wins so far this year on the Winston Cup Trail for 1985. There is J.D. McDuffie, who is almost at a stall up at the entrance to the pit area. The car moving very slowly. By the way, Dale Earnhardt also made an unscheduled pit stop just a couple of minutes ago. But McDuffie's car, although it remains moving very slowly, is off of the racetrack and essentially in the pit area, so it will not be a yellow flag display. Dale Earnhardt has moved behind the wall back into the garage area. Cale Yarborough from Timmonsville, North Carolina, South Carolina, continues to lead, and we asked him earlier about his season so far.
Sure hope they're over. You know, it hasn't all been engine trouble. We just had a lot of trouble altogether. I think most of it's been just rotten racing more than anything else. You know, just like at Daytona, 4th of July, we tore up a transmission. That's just something that is unheard of, really, almost, but it happened to us. And usually when things go bad, they go bad for a while, and it'll turn around and go the other way, and I hope that's going to happen soon.
Cale Yarborough has won twice here at Pocono. This is his 15th start on this racetrack. He leads Tim Richmond, Benny Parsons, then Bill Elliott and Neil Bonnet as they come down to complete lap number 13. Let's go to Jack Arode, who's with Dale Earnhardt, an early dropout of the Summer 500.
Dale, not many laps of competition this afternoon. What put you out?
Well, you know, this Wrangler Goodrich Chevrolet is running awful good. We did a lot of work on the engines the last 2 weeks we had off, and Lou and all the guys have been really working hard, and we got a lot of more horsepower than what we had. The thing we run a lot better was run along with the crowd, and just waiting for them to get sorted out, and we'd move up a little as we went, and it was running good. With just something broke in the bottom.
With all the work that you say you've been doing, could this be a result or a little bit of a look as a result of the changes that were made in the engine rules, literally the carburation rule a month ago?
I don't know. You know, we're just having to work extra hard, and you know, I don't know. There's a lot of things could cause it. We've just been working hard.
You've got a chance to measure some of the competition out there. Who's the strongest right now, Dale?
Everybody in front of me was.
All right, Dale Earnhardt and J.D. McDuffie both are back behind the wall out of the race here in the early going as Cale Yarborough continues to lead. And Jeff Bodine has moved up to 6th position. You can see him in that bright yellow and white car, now headed into corner number 1. There he is, Jeff Bodine, who has moved into 6th spot.
Jeff appears to be running just a little looser than all the other front runners that time when they going through the turn number 1. Of course, setting the car up looser normally allows you to go fast, and it's something that perhaps the crew wanted to do in the early stages of this race, like prior to the very first lap. Set the car up a little loose, let Jeff move up to the leaders, and then tighten it up and go racing at the end of the race when the track gets slick.
Well, we were all rather surprised on Friday after Jeff turned in his outstanding qualifying performance. But unfortunately, in a check after qualifying, the car was declared disqualified because of illegal fuel, and we talked to him about it.
NASCAR says Jeff Bodine had illegal fuel in his tank. What's your view?
Well, Dick, I guess we had a little too much of that Tiger in our tank. They say the color of our fuel was a little off. It didn't look quite like the straight Union fuel that we're supposed to use. But it is a common practice of all race teams to kind of juice up their fuel for qualifying. Even sometimes in a race, they'll juice up that last batch of fuel they're going to put in for the last pit stop, trying to give their driver, their car, a little advantage with horsepower. It's a shame it happened. We feel like our car was handling good. That's why we got the pole. It wasn't because we had anything special in our fuel tank. But we'll just have to come from the back of the pack to the front and prove that it wasn't the fuel that did it.
Well, both Jeff Bodine and Neil Bonnet have proven points here today that you can start in the middle of the pack and be running up in the top 6 within the first 15 laps. Neil Bonnet started 21st, is 4th, and Jeff Bodine started 22nd, is now 6th.
Bob, in an informal poll, just questions and answers, really, earlier this morning, most of the crew members basically agreed with Jeff Bodine's viewpoint on the fuel.
The average speed at the end of 10 laps, 148.270 miles an hour, and the pace continues to be set by Cale Yarborough. As we go once again to the in-car camera and Lake Speed, we'll be back with more in just a moment. Just an outstanding performance so far by Neil Bonnet in the number 12 car. He has moved into 2nd position. He passed Tim Richmond going into turn number 1, and now Neil Bonnet is in 2nd place.
Oh, my goodness.
Cale Yarborough going to the inside, and Neil Bonnet to the outside of Bobby Gerhardt in car number 25 outside the tunnel turn.
Boy, if Bobby Gerhardt, you just freeze. You don't dare budge one way or another. I would suggest that they caught Bobby a little bit unaware, or perhaps Bobby's car was still rocking around after the tunnel turn. He did a pretty good job there. He saw him coming. He did what he was supposed to do. He stayed right there.
Well, normally there would have been 2 major races for you this afternoon on nationwide television. However, as you probably know, the Michigan 500 IndyCar race was postponed until next Saturday, or rather next Sunday, because of some tire and track conditions. And so for those of you who would normally be watching that race, we welcome you to this Grand National race. Back in the pack, it's Jeff Bodine, or rather Darrell Waltrip and Ron Bouchard battling out there on the racetrack, and Ricky Rudd is on the outside in this 3-car battle.
Now that is guts football, going down the long pond backstretch, going toward turn number 2. Let's see what happens. Oh, they all fall down in the single file, whoops, over the bump, settle the car down, you kind of get comfortable yourself, and now you charge toward turn number 3. Remember, this is only a 3-turn racetrack, and there are the leaders in turn 3, and here comes number 12.
And once again, Neil Bonnet getting almost off of the racetrack in corner number 3. That's a flat turn, banking only 6 degrees. Now, Bonnet moves right alongside Cale Yarborough, and Tim Richmond moves to the inside to make it a 3-way battle going into turn number 1. They should go single file through here. It's Tim Richmond that wins the race to turn number 1. Bodine slides into 2nd. Yarborough stays high on the track in 4th, with Neil Bonnet in 3rd.
Jeff Bodine made what you might call a commitment that time, and Neil Bonnet had to yield. Bodine tucked right in behind Tim Richmond. They were like one car that time, Bob, going into turn number 1, and Bodine was there for keeps, and anybody else who wanted it had to move out of the way, or they were going to crash. Jeff Bodine with a real strong, strength-like move going into turn number 1, and it was not. Oh, and Tim Richmond gets out of shape coming out of the tunnel. Now, this will give Bodine some momentum going into turn number 3. This should be Bodine.
That's what happens when you slip just a little bit, as Tim Richmond did. The rear end of the car getting just a little loose, and that allowed Jeff Bodine to go to the inside and grab the lead away from Tim Richmond. Off of corner number 3, Bodine will be scored as the leader of lap number 21.
Boy, there are lots of people that we have seen so far today who are capable of leading this race, at least prior to the first pit stop here. And if this stays like this all day long, this could be one tremendous race. Now, there's Neil Bonnet coming back. Bonnet has lost a little bit of his edge on speed because he had to slow down the last lap going into turn number 1. When he slowed down, the 3,700 pounds of that race car slows it down. Momentum is so very, very important, and now Bonnet, who has shown most of the strength speed so far today, has got to try and catch up. He's going to turn off a couple of perfect laps here now to catch up with Tim Richmond and Jeff Bodine. But I would suggest, if what we've seen so far is any indication, Bonnet is capable.
A little loose there from Cale Yarborough, too, as he came off corner number 2. The car wiggled just a little bit. There are your leaders, Jeff Bodine, who has come from 22nd starting position, followed by Tim Richmond. Harry Hyde, the crew chief on the Bodine car. Let's go down to the pit area.
Well, Harry Hyde, are you a little bit concerned about the dicing that's going on early on in the race?
Well, traffic was a little bit heavy, Jackie, but he has come from 22nd position to 1st in 21 laps. So somewhere he passed 2 cars in 1 lap. Maybe that'll take a little heat off of the fact that he needs something that smells like hot fuel to Dick Beatty to be able to run, okay?
What about the race setup for you? Did you go to anticipate it getting hot and loose like you did the last time, or have you gone a little more conservative?
No, I left the setup all to Jeff Bodine. I have to give him credit for the driving, the smoothness. The chassis setup is all Jeff Bodine's, and it looks like he's doing a very fine job with it. And when you got a driver like him, you don't have to have a chassis man like me, okay?
Okay with me. How about you guys upstairs?
It's okay with us, and unfortunately, Jeff Bodine has slipped just a little since you've been carrying on that conversation with Harry Hyde. Tim Richmond has slipped back into the lead. Neil Bonnet running 3rd right behind Jeff Bodine. Look at the drafting going on here as they head for corner number 1 again. It's a 3-car race again into turn number 1. Let's see who wins this one. It looks like it's going to be Neil Bonnet. Bonnet moves into the lead. Oh, man, tremendous racing.
Bob, on the last lap, the viewers at home had an opportunity to see Jeff's left hand coming out of the window between turns 2 and 3. he was signaling to somebody, and I'm not really sure. It's very difficult to tell. There's so many guys in the vicinity, but I think he was telling Tim Richmond to come on by. Jeff had to go to the high side of a lap car to make the lap, and Tim Richmond was lapping on the inside, and Tim had just a little bit better line, and I think Jeff recognized this. Now, see, there they go around the outside of Joe Boer. That is Jeff Woodine. Now, watch for that left hand coming out. See him pointing? He's either waving to Joe Boer saying, thanks for the line, but it looks like he's pointing, and I think that he's telling Tim Richmond, yeah, you got me. I've seen you lap on the inside. Why don't you lead us into turn number 3?
Well, Jeff has jumped back into the lead as Neil Bonnet and Cale Yarborough run side by side for second. They're followed by Richmond, Bill Elliott, and Benny Parsons. And now Tim Richmond moving to the inside, making it once again a 3-car side-by-side race into corner number 1. That inside line looks like it's the fastest.
Oh, Timmy! Oh,
Tim Richmond just a little bit out of shape, but hanging on. Second position battle with Neil Bonnet.
Well, you keep calling it a 3 or 4. It looks like about a 6 or 7 car race. I'll tell you about. They go into turn number 1, 3 abreast. These guys are really doing an excellent job because this is a tough racetrack. You cannot set the car up like you can on a high bank racetrack.
Well, the crowd has not sat down since the drop of the green flag. They're seeing tremendous racing, and we'll be back with more of our live coverage in just a moment. Summer 500, where 1/8 of the race completed 25 laps. Jeff Bodine, Neil Bonnet, and Cale Yarborough, your top 3. Running back in 16th position, Lake Speed, with our in-car camera running right behind Bobby Hillen Jr.
Bob, they're running at about 16th or 17th position real quickly outside of those first 6. Harry Gant, the number 77 car, Greg Sachs is there, Ricky Rudd, and then in 10th unofficially, Darrell Waltrip.
So Lake Speed carrying our in-car camera headed for the tunnel turn. And we thought you would be interested in knowing a little bit about the in-car camera. Since the Southern 500 last year, ESPN has utilized an in-car camera for most of our NASCAR telecasts. The camera is not only able to show you action as the driver sees it, but also pictures from both sides and behind the car. And when we were with Kyle Petty at North Wilkesboro earlier this year, you saw things that you wouldn't ordinarily see from our other cameras. The car cam that we utilize is a product of a company called the Vision Group, headquartered in Pompano Beach, Florida. There are 6 full-time employees of the Vision Group, and they arrive a couple of days before the race to begin installation. It takes about 90 minutes to install the system in the car, which utilizes not only the camera, but also a microwave transmitter. The entire system weighs only about 12 pounds, and most drivers agree you hardly know it's there. It shows you 360 degrees of action. It tilts up and down and zooms, so you at home feel like you're right in the driver's seat. The signal from the microwave transmitter in the car is picked up by a helicopter which hovers about 2,000 feet above the track throughout the race. From there, the signal is sent back to a receiver located on top of the grandstand. And from there, the signal goes to CarCam Control, where the actual picture is selected. CarCam was developed and perfected by Stephen L. Freed, who founded and was the president of the Vision Group.
Okay, you can tell him to go back to the other camera now, Billy Haggerty.
His skill and know-how with a single joystick control resulted in the unbelievable pictures that you've seen many times. The Vision Group name seemed appropriate because Steve was a man of vision. Last week, Steve Freed died of a heart attack at the age of 40. His absence as a worker and friend is being felt by all of us today, and it's in Steve Freed's memory that we dedicate today's telecast of the Summer 500. At Pocono, and Tim Richmond, who was an early leader, has just made a pit stop. It was a quick stop. He's back out there on the racetrack, and we've completed about 30 laps, and it's a little questionable as to whether that was a routine stop.
It appeared to be routine, except a crewman jumped inside the car or leaned inside the car and jacked the weight around in the right rear, but I think it's too early to go with just 2 more stops. Tim may have to do 1 extra unless there's a yellow.
Perhaps more on the situation from Dick Berggren. Dick?
Well, Bob, Larry Newber was absolutely right. It is too early to come in for a routine stop, and this was not a routine stop. Tim thought he had a right side tire going down. They changed both right side tires, put the fuel in it, and he's back out again.
All right, the average speed is up to 147.541 miles an hour. Jeff Bodine is the leader of the race. He has about a 1.5-second lead on Cale Yarborough. Running in third spot is Neil Bonnet. Fourth is Bill Elliott, and fifth is Benny Parsons. Sixth, Harry Gant. Seventh is Greg Sachs. Eighth is Darrell Waltrip. Ninth is Kyle Petty. In 10th position is Richard Petty. 11th belongs to Ricky Rudd, and in 12th spot is Ron Bouchard.
And the next group, Lake Speed, Bobby Hillen Jr., David Pearson, Rusty Wallace, Dave Marcus, Bobby Allison, the number 17 of Lenny Pond, and 88 of Buddy Baker. All those guys are on the same lap with these guys, but at least a half a lap behind, maybe as much as 3/4 of a lap behind the leaders. And Jeff Bodine is showing us something this afternoon.
Yeah, and his words are speaking for themselves, because he said he had the fastest car, and although he was disqualified, he has come from 22nd position. He had to start there because he was relegated to a second-day qualifier. He has come on to take the lead, and as I said, about a 1.5-second lead now over this trio of cars, Cale Yarborough and others. Now, Darrell Waltrip has just passed the number 77 of Greg Sachs. And we have a car spinning out of corner number 3 here on the main straightaway. Looks like it's Don Hume, and the yellow comes out.
Yeah, Don Hume, who earlier this year was the driver for the Cleaner Hands car of James Hilton, was able to land this ride. One of the finest cars that we saw in the pits of all this weekend. As a matter of fact, the number 48 machine that Hume was in. Extremely well-built car, at least apparently so, and one of the most beautifully painted, I might add, also. And here come the leaders. They're going to take this opportunity to pit on lap number 33, actually.
Jeff Bodine, Cale Yarborough, Neil Bonnet, and Bill Elliott all making pit stops. Let's go to Jackaroo.
Looking down on Jeff Bodine's crew as they go to work on the right side, making an exchange of Goodyear Racing tires, taking on 22 gallons of fuel. So far, as best we can discern, no major chassis adjustment. A little bit of a problem on the right front tire. They're working on it, trying to reaffix the lug nuts. A lengthy stop. It could possibly cost them the lead. 20.3 seconds, and it looks as if some of the leaders are going to get out ahead of them.
As a matter of fact, it looks like about 5 beat Jeff Bodine out of the pits. Here they all come out onto the racetrack. The pace car has moved out, and Don Hume's spin came at a very opportune time for these drivers because it was very close to routine pit stop time. Now, Hume did not touch anything as he spun coming off of corner number 3. He moved into the pit area, made a stop, and he, too, is moving back out onto the racetrack.
This is also a break for Terry Labonte. Remember, we mentioned earlier that he's going to be about a half a lap behind unless there's a yellow flag early. He can catch up. That's happened.
So with the yellow flag displayed for the first time because of Don Hume's spin, we'll take this break and be right back to Pocono. The Summer 500 from Pocono International Raceway being brought to you live today on ESPN's Auto Racing 85. There is Jeff Bodine, who was the leader until this yellow flag came out and until he made the pit stop. He was a little late getting out, and let's talk to him now.
Jeff, this is Larry Newber up on ESPN. The pit stop hurt just a bit, didn't it?
Not just a bit, Larry. Hell, I'm way back here, but that's no problem. This car's running real good. We'll get back to the front.
That also was one of the fastest yellow flag laps we've seen in quite some time. The pace car seemed to be in front of some of the back markers in the back, and you guys had to race to catch up once you got out of the pits.
I don't know why they threw the yellow. I saw a squirrel run across the third corner. I don't know if they threw it for that little squirrel or what, but it was a quick yellow.
No, Don Hume did spin. He didn't touch anything. How about that right front? Was that a problem getting it back on during the pit stop?
Apparently they had some trouble with the nuts. Sometimes the nuts fall off the wheels and it throws them up a little bit. I was out front. They probably got a little nervous and got excited, maybe dropped some nuts. But it's no problem.
Jeff, you've been flogging away and looking good, and stay with it, buddy.
Thanks.
Let's go down to Jackaroo to the pit area with more on this situation. Jack?
Well, here's exactly what happened, gentlemen. You see this air gun? The right front tire changer uses it. When he goes across the wall, it goes that way to take the lug nuts off. When he dropped the gun, however, he had made the exchange. This little pin here, you push it in like this. Well, when he dropped the gun, it hit the ground and knocked it back. He went to the lugs that were on the wheel, and it was still going in reverse. He spun them all off of the wheel, had to scramble for them on the ground, put it back on, and that's what cost them that 20-second plus stop.
Well, you remember when we made the pit stop last race?
We would have never made a mistake like that. We wouldn't have gotten that far to make that kind of mistake.
Well, Jeff Bodine, as he indicated, his car appears to be running so well that it really doesn't make too much difference about the relatively slow pit stop that he just completed.
No, I don't think it does, Bob. We're very early in the race here. That was the first pit stops of at least 3 that everybody is kind of anticipating. It came maybe just a little early, but then again, all the crews now have an opportunity to check those fuel tanks, those gas tanks that they refill with, see just exactly how the fuel consumption mileage has been going. Everybody probably can make it on 2 more stops, but let's see how it goes from here.
Field is still under caution. The pace car, however, is pulling off, and the field comes around for their normal 2 abreast start, and we are back to green. Cale Yarborough is the leader. Bill Elliott running second, then Harry Gant and Benny Parsons. Back in the field with a lot of traffic around him is Lake Speed with our in-car camera. There he is. Ron Bouchard, the Valvoline Buick, running right ahead of him. Speed negotiating turn number 1 now, coming out of it onto Long Pond straightaway, moving to the inside now of Ron Bouchard and of Richard Petty in the STP Pontiac. There they are on the racetrack. Tim Richmond also moving up there to do battle with Greg Sachs and Richard Petty and Lake Speed. There we have the shot from out the rear window of the car.
Those guys are really running close. Greg Sachs, I want to cite him. He's been doing a very good job in the Miller Dyegard car. He's been running in 7th, 8th, 9th position, holding his own right out there, running in the top 10. He's been within a couple of seconds of the leaders all race long. Richard Petty, who we're looking at out of Lake Speed's back window there on the left, or the outside lane right next to the wall. He's running an engine that has a lot of Petty engineering into it this week. You know, they've had some problems with the engines they've been getting from the Dan Gurney shops out in California, and Richard took the engine back home to Randleman this weekend and put some of his own touches on it, and they're hoping for the best.
Action from outside the rear window of Lake Speed's car in turn number 1 here at Pocono. As we watch the positions change back of him, Lake is still running around 16th position, and he started in that spot. Now the battle up front involving Cale Yarborough and Bill Elliott.
By the way, a little earlier I mentioned everybody should be able to go the distance on 2 more stops. That's times 2. I keep forgetting this is a 500-mile race this time. So the point being that everybody was pretty much on schedule with that 30 lap 33, lap 34 pit stop.
Bill Elliott has moved into the lead, going to the inside of Cale Yarborough.
There is Jeff Bodine going free abreast with Bill Parsons in the middle and Cale Yarborough on the outside. Bill Elliott, who's had such a great year. Remember now, there's the guy who has won most of the races. He has won 7 times in the 1985 season already, and everybody else combined has won 8. So Bill Elliott's batting average is about 500 so far in 1985.
Neil Bonnet is the leader at car number 12. There he is, a few car lengths ahead now of Bill Elliott. Cale Yarborough running in 3rd, and Jeff Bodine has moved back up into 4th spot. Now Bill Elliott once again moves up to challenge, and Bonnet getting the right side, the left side wheels off of the racetrack. Bobby Gerhardt, who's celebrating a birthday today, has spun off of the racetrack down into the infield, but he keeps the car going. Nevertheless, Harold Kinder is displaying the yellow.
Well, Bobby, of course, is one of the local drivers as the rest of the field races to the yellow. Now, on this point of the race, I would suggest I would be comfortable just to tuck down in behind the guy in front of me and try and hold my own as the leaders are coming back into the pits. Interestingly enough, everybody's coming back into the pits. I'm guessing that one of the reasons is, remember we told you earlier that this racetrack has a history of very long green flags. So you have to have the optimum amount of fuel, the larger amount of fuel in that car you possibly can hold at all times, because you never know when you might go 35, 40, maybe even 100-plus laps on one load of fuel.
Well, everybody came in except Neil Bonnet and Bill Elliott. They stayed out on the racetrack, but everybody else came in, including Darrell Waltrip. Now they're all beginning to file out of the pit area. Jeff Bodine is out. So is Benny Parsons. And the rest, here comes Darrell Waltrip also out of the pit area.
Well, we commented a little earlier that it probably doesn't make all that much difference, and I would ditto that comment again, but it's a good time and a good reason to stop and top off the fuel on lap number 39 to give you the maximum distance that you can possibly go in this race without having to make an additional pit stop.
And there is Bobby Allison in car number 22. Here the two leaders come into the pits now, a lap later than everybody else. They stop at just about the same location in the pit area, Bill Elliott and Neil Bonnet. Let's watch the crews go to work on their cars. They're changing rubber on the left side of Bill Elliott's car and on the left side of Neil Bonnet's machine.
Battle of the Beers, and of course the leaders are out on the racetrack at reduced speed, motoring around. And Bonnet and Elliott, as they come out, may come out of this in pretty good fashion.
Let's go down to Jackaroo to the pit area.
Well, here's the story, gentlemen, on why everybody is taking advantage of these pit stops under caution. Remember some that came in the last time and they took right side or left side rubber? Remember, NASCAR has a rule that under caution, you can only take on one set of tires. That's 2 tires each pit stop under caution. Or you're penalized if you do it more than once under the same caution period. Well, with 40 laps in the books, they've gone about the length that they should go for fuel consumption, but now everybody's literally been able to take on 4 brand new tires within that span of lap 31 to 40. So they're ready to go racing again for another 35 laps with brand new rubber all the way around the race car.
Should be a good restart, and we should see some tremendous battles when the green flag does come back out, and we anticipate it will in just a few more minutes. Right now, ESPN and NASCAR present a track fact.
Motors are the lifeblood of a Winston Cup Grand National stock car. And on the tour, if you're going for the victory, you'd better have more than one. The top teams on the circuit will bring as many as 4 engines to a race, built specifically for the task at hand. One will be in the car during practice, and they'll use another one during qualifying. They'll pull that engine out after qualifying and put in their race motor, which is built specifically for 500 miles of racing on a Sunday afternoon. Of course, they'll carry a spare. At $16,000 to $18,000 a copy, you're talking about $65,000 to $70,000 worth of horsepower.
This track fact has been brought to you by Levi Garrett Chewing Tobacco. Time after time, the quality comes through. We'll be back with more of our live coverage of the Summer 500 from Pocono International Raceway right after these messages. Back at the Summer 500 in Pocono, 40-lap average speed, 139.969 miles an hour. We've been slowed about 10 miles an hour in the last few laps because of the 2 yellow flags that we have had. We have now completed 43 laps. The leader is Tim Richmond. Running in second position now is Neil Bonnet, then Harry Gant and Jeff Bodine. Now, Dave Marcus was running up there in second position, but he has lost a couple of positions in the last few laps. Marcus, who did not lead a lap and was in second spot for a while.
Okay, there are the leaders. We're zooming in on Harry Gant and that green and white number 33. Just a word about Harry Gant. I got to tell you something, Bob. I'm not really sure that I'm not really ready to say that he may be the favorite in this race at this point. I'll tell you the reason why. They have been having very good luck. No, it's more than luck. Well, maybe luck plus a lot of skill in the engine compartment so far in the 1985 season. Remember, we told you that he had finished second twice and won a race here the last 3 times at Pocono. If Gant finishes in this race, I can guarantee you he is going to be a significant factor. He may be the guy to remember and to click on in your brain. He may not be as spectacular as some of the other people here in the next few laps. Bodine has been very fast, has looked very good. Tim Richmond's having a good day. Neil Bonnet's having a good day. Waltrip showed some strength earlier. But remember Harry Gant.
Bonnet is having an excellent day, I think you could say. Started 21st, now running in second position. He was relegated to a second-day qualifier, and we talked to him about his engine problems.
Neil Bonnet, the last time you had a brand new race car, you won the race. You've got a brand new race car here at Pocono. You going to win the race again?
We're going to make a run at it. This is an awful good race car. And we came up here for the first race this season with a short track car. Thought it would be what we needed to get across these short chutes, and we found out we needed some straightaway speed too with the super speedway cars. So they went back, they built the car that's got a little bit of short track built in it, the handling, and it's also got a very good body on it, so we should be in good shape.
He's in very good shape at this point, tucked in right behind Tim Richmond as they go into turn number 1. That's Richmond, Bonnet, Bodine, and Benny Parsons, who has also stuck right up there at the front end all the way so far, 45 laps.
There is Darrell Waltrip, who has been running about 10th position. That's round figures for most of the last 15 or 20 laps. He runs competitively. You never know about Darrell Waltrip. He's doing battle right now with Ricky Rudd. He's a very crafty racer.
But Jack Arute, you say there might be some concern in that pit area?
There's a great deal of concern, Bob, especially as it applies to how the engine temperature is going. They're concerned that maybe the car's running just a little hotter than they'd like. They've taken a look at it and huddled each and every time under caution that the car's been presented on pit road. The question mark, though, to them is how best to solve the problem. Do they open up some holes to get air, or do they just use this and squirt some water towards it? They don't know yet. They'll make the decision very shortly.
Back out on the racetrack, Neil Bonnet has passed Tim Richmond to go into the lead once again. And I'll tell you, these first 7 cars are running nose to tail and side by side all the way around this racetrack. Here they come off of the first corner onto the Long Pond straightaway. Neil Bonnet going to the inside now, trying to break the draft, staying in the lead. Richmond pursuing along with Bodine.
On that temperature situation with Waltrip, remember that drafting, except on the long straightaway here in Pocono, is not as much of a factor it is on the super speed. And we got trouble. Don Hume, I think, has hit the wall this time. Or no, I don't think so. He just barely missed it, Bob. What a violent-looking spin, though, and it looked like the front end was scraping along the outside wall, but apparently no damage.
Well, he came very close if he didn't hit the wall, as close as you can come. That's Don's second spin in the race today. The yellow has come out once again. Hume gets the car rolling once again and is coming toward the pit area, and so are the leaders. Almost everybody coming in for another pit stop. 47 laps completed here. We watch Darrell Waltrip come in, and we'll see now the steps that are taken to try to cool the engine in this car.
You can see Junior Johnson himself right there trying to do work on the hood, and Jack Arute is right down there.
Neil Bonnet pulling out. Jack, what's going on down there?
Problems, gentlemen. They're having problems getting the hood up. They've accomplished that. Now they're trying to put the water to the radiator and into the system, trying to purge the system and cool the temperature down. It's running very high, and Darrell Waltrip is simply shaking his head inside the race car. They're trying to get the hood down here now. They're holding him up, saying, wait, wait. Now they've got to put all 4 hood pins back in. This won't be as costly because it's under the luxury of caution, but you can be sure that Darrell Waltrip is none too happy about the situation.
Junior Johnson doing his own work down there on that car as he tried to cool down the engine. Now Waltrip pulling back out onto the racetrack. Our third caution period of the afternoon brought about by a spin by Don Hume. There is the pace car that has come onto the racetrack, but it has not picked up the leaders as yet. We'll be back with more of our live coverage of the Summer 500 in just a moment. August is a big month as far as auto racing is concerned. 11 big events. Grand National racing from Michigan, from Bristol, and from Darlington. The Austrian Grand Prix and Dutch Grand Prix from Europe, and then kart races involve those at Elkhart Lake, here at Pocono, and we also have drag racing and the IMSA series. Join us for all of the best in auto racing during the month of August, and of course, every Thursday night at 7:30 on ESPN, we host Speed Week, which brings you up to date on all the news from the world of motorsports. I think there are more campers and infield visitors this time here at Pocono than any time I've ever seen.
Well, we've said it before. We experienced it last year. This is really one of the real party spots for infield fans of racetracks around the country.
Once again, the shot from the in-car camera. Neil Bonnet is right behind Lake Speed in the Nationwide Auto Parts car. We are under yellow. And there is the Junior Johnson pit, where they are continuing to discuss the overheating problem that Darrell Waltrip is experiencing.
Well, Jeff Hammond there on the right, Junior, of course, on the left. Began to say earlier that on super speedway, it's really important to keep the cars pretty much as wrapped as tight as you possibly can. Letting air through really disrupts the drafting that you do on the big racetracks. But a racetrack like this, the draft really takes effect primarily on the front stretch, and most of the rest of the way around, it's not quite as much of a factor, and you can take the chance to open them up and let the air go through them, so you can get a little more cooling into the car. But if you have to take special effort to cool that car down during every pit stop, that takes extra time. Plus, if the gauge keeps going up on the dashboard, Darrell has to be very conscious of that. Probably can't run as fast as he would really like to all race long.
Dick Berggren in the pit area.
And Richard Petty is in the pit area, and once again, his hood is up. In the last 2 days, Richard Petty's team has changed the engines in this car 4 separate times. The engine they got in the car right now, they call their Petty motor. It's kind of a cross between a gurney motor and a Petty motor that's been reworked, and some parts they had lying around. These guys have really worked hard. In fact, the only day off they've had since Daytona has been one Friday, the Friday right after the Daytona 500. And a lot of their time has been spent working on engines. This has been the year of the engine for Richard Petty for sure, and he's got more engine trouble right now.
The green flag has come back out and the Summer 500 resumes. Look who's in front. It's Greg Sachs in number 77, the winner of the Firecracker 400 not too long ago. Let's see if that car is as dominant here today as it was in that race.
As we told you earlier, Dick followed up on that engine in Richard Petty's car is sort of a hybrid. To be specific, there are Petty cylinder heads and an oil pan on it. The engine was redefined down in level cross, and it's kind of an experimental thing, but they have had all kinds of bad luck. They've been unhappy with the performance of the engines they've been getting from California, and so they've tried a little bit of an individual expression. Speaking of individual expression, there is David Pearson taking the lead temporarily. They've tried a little bit of that individual expression under the Petty hood this weekend.
Pearson going into the lead. Meanwhile, we're at Lake Speed, and look at him work the steering wheel and the accelerator. He's got it all the way to the floor now as they go over Long Pond straightaway, and you can see Neil Bonnet pulling away from Lake Speed, and Jeff Bodine going to the inside and also passing Lake.
Well, they've done pretty well in their series of pit stops. Little sparks coming out from, I think it was Neil Bonnet's car. You saw the car scraping bottom just momentarily, going over the ripples there at turn number 2. There's Greg Sachs right directly in front. Jeff Bodine on the inside. Lake says, I think that number 5 is running just a little faster. I'll tuck down behind him as we go around turn number 4, then down the long front stretch. Maybe I can gain a little bit of ground. They come again through turn number 2. There's the bumps. Oh, and he bangs into. Greg Sachs just touches him. And I'll tell you, at 130, 140 miles an hour, just a touch will really upset the car.
And look at what it cost Lake Speed, as both Harry Gant and Bill Elliott were able to sneak by him.
Boy, it happens really quickly. You can see as we were watching out the front window, it looked like that the number 75 of Lake Speed was all set to just follow Jeff Bodine through. Everybody knows how fast Jeff has been. They went over the tunnel turn and bang, all of a sudden Lake basically lost the draft, whatever draft Jeff was giving out, as they went down through turn number 2 and plus the short stretch between turns 2 and turn 3.
You're riding with Lake Speed, and just about a second ago, you were traveling at about 170 miles an hour before they had to get off of the accelerator and brake hard going into turn number 1. Now Lake looking to the inside of Kyle Petty and Greg Sachs out of turn number 1.
Boy, it really gives you a great idea of what these guys are going through. Here's that bump again. Bang, bang, bang. You have to kind of take a big, deep breath and then regather everything, including your own senses, after you go through that bump. But you can see how closely they're running, and it really gives you an idea how good of athletes in terms of hand-eye coordination these guys really are.
Well, we'll take a look once again at how the car can get upset as it goes over the tunnel turn.
There you see Greg moving down on the inside, and Greg and Lake, if they didn't touch, I'll tell you, that's about as close as you can come without touching. To tell you the truth, I didn't see any scuff marks either on Greg's left rear or Lake's right front after that little incident, so maybe it was just terribly, terribly close.
Back up front, it is car number 12, Neil Bonnet, the leader. Running in second position is David Pearson. Third is Jeff Bodine. The average speed at the end of the first 50 laps of fourth of the race, 131.810 miles an hour. An interesting story from David Pearson this weekend. He has announced that he will be leaving the Haas Ellington team at the end of this race. He'll have his own team next week for Talladega. Let's go down to Jackaroot.
Well, we can give you the inside story on what's going to happen with David Pearson. Here's the situation. Pearson will be leaving. He'll be going to a Ford-prepared car coming out of his own shop in Spartanburg, South Carolina. But we have confirmed with Haas Ellington, the owner of car number 21, that the driver, at least at Talladega, will be none other than Davey Allison, the young son of Bobby Allison will be driving for Hoss Ellington in what looks to me right now a one-race deal. When we queried Hoss Ellington about it, he said it will also carry a brand new sponsor, Lancaster Chewing Tobacco, which is part of the Chattanooga Chew Group. And when I asked him if it was indeed going to be 4 or 5 races for Davey Allison, he says, we will make the official announcement on Tuesday. But then he winked at me and he said it indeed will be Davey.
So we'll be watching for Davey Allison in his debut in Grand National Racing next weekend at Talladega.
As we look at this battle, I think it's about third on back. Just to put a period on the story of why only 4 or 5 races for Davey. If he can stay within 5 races this year, of course, he can run for the Rookie of the Year honor next year if he so chooses in NASCAR. You go more than 5 and you're no longer considered a rookie for the next season.
Darrell Waltrip moving to the inside off of corner number 3 and passing Lake Speed as they go down the front straightaway here. Waltrip with the overheating problem, but they may have solved it on the last pit stop. Now diving into turn number 1 and 14 degrees of banking. You take the car right down to the inside of the racetrack. In fact, a lot of drivers have gotten the left side tires off into the grass. And that might create a problem because it throws dust and dirt up onto the racetrack and makes it slippery.
Also, it makes the tires a whole lot more vulnerable to puncture if you do that lap after lap after lap. We've seen that in other races on ESPN. Particularly the Indy cars seem to be extremely susceptible to that on road courses. Buddy Baker goes to the inside of Lake Speed. And speaking about road courses, you know, that's what some of the drivers call this. 3 big turns of a road course is what they call Pocono from time to time.
Right behind Buddy Baker now, going over turn number 2. Lake Speed in the number 75 car that's carrying our in-car camera today. Coming off of turn number 3, there's a good look at Buddy Baker, the driver of car number 88. Bullfrog hits Liquid Wrench Oldsmobile. He started this race in 18th position. Back up front, it continues to be Neil Bonnet, Jeff Bodine, and Bill Elliott running 1, 2, 3.
Well, the 2 guys who would be classified as Mr. Speed at this racetrack, not Lake Speed, but Mr. Horsepower Speed in recent years, Bonnet, Bodine, versus the guy who was definitely Mr. Speed for the 1985 season, Bill Elliott at number 9. So some real fast jack rabbits up front, I got to tell you. And those guys right now, they're not exactly riding out the race. They're always doing a little bit of experimentation, trying to find out where I am fast, where the other guy is fast. There's Jeff Bodine doing some profitable experimentation. And remember another thing they start to think about at this point of the race. It's still early, but we're approaching lap number 60. Lap number 100 pays some extra bucks. We'll get into that a little bit later. But these guys are trying to find out exactly where they are good on the racetrack. Of course, things can change. The track can get hotter as the daylight, the afternoon sun beats down on this racetrack and makes it more slippery. You can get a set of tires that are not exactly like the last set of tires you had. That can make a difference. So conditions can really change. This gives you an indication. What's going on right now is just a taste of how the car is likely to perform the rest of the day.
Well, the sun continues to beat down, and temperatures were predicted to be around 90 by the end of the race here this afternoon, and high humidities. We have seen some clouds move in the last hour or so, but of no real significance. There's only a 30% chance of rain here this afternoon. Jeff Bodine and Neil Bonnet, who both started in the middle of the pack, are running up front, and Bill Elliott in car number 9 is running in 3rd position. There is Richard Petty in the STP Pontiac. He has been in for a couple of unscheduled pit stops and is running well outside of the top 10. 58 laps have now been completed, and ESPN now presents an STP pit stop.
This is another STP Pit Stop. I'm Larry Newber. We're coming to you today from the showroom of the Petty Curb Racing Garage in Kannapolis, North Carolina. You know, Richard Petty has won 200 Grand National races, still counting, and he has competed in almost 1,000. But I was wondering, Richard, do you remember the first one, any pressure that was involved in it, or any trepidation about entering it?
Well, you know, I turned 21 years old, and I went over and asked Daddy if I could borrow a car, and we fixed up a car and went to Columbia, South Carolina, and you know, that was the first race that I'd ever run. In fact, I'd never been on a racetrack before.
Richard, from birth, you grew up in a racing environment, but did you ever consider doing anything else?
Not really. When I went to high school, I played football, baseball, and basketball. Come home, worked on a race car, and figured that's what I'd always do. And then when I got old enough, I just started driving.
Do you remember who won the race and who you raced against?
Well, we raced against Fireball Roberts and Bob Wilburn. I think they ran side by side all night long, and I think Bob Wilburn wound up winning the race, and we wound up sixth.
Do you miss the dirt?
I really do. I think that everybody that's run dirt really enjoyed dirt. It was real hard on equipment and hard on the driver and stuff, but I think the driver got more of a thrill running on dirt than he does on asphalt.
Well, I guess the two most visible trademarks are the color Petty Blue, which has become called Petty Blue, and the number 43. Did you just pick those out of the air or what?
Well, the numbers came about because my father had 42. He picked it off a license plate when he first started, and I tried to do him one better with 43. And the color came up one time when we got ready to paint the car, and we didn't have enough white paint or enough blue paint or any color, and we just poured a bunch of white and blue together, and it came out that color.
Well, this has been Richard Petty reminiscing about the early days of stock car racing. This has been another STP Pit Stop. I'm Larry Newber.
Back at the Summer 500 in Pocono, Neil Bonnet is the leader. Jeff Bodine running second. Bill Elliott in third spot. Running fourth is Kyle Petty. Fifth is David Pearson. And sixth, Terry Labonte. We've completed 63 laps. And this has been a race in which the starters in the middle of the pack have come up to run among the leaders. Neil Bonnet and Jeff Bodine in that category, and so is Kyle Petty, who started 24th in this race, but now runs in 4th position in that number 7 Wood Brothers Ford. There's Kyle in the 7-Eleven sponsored machine, running in 4th spot.
Actually, his qualifying run, Bob, was relatively slow compared to the rest of the front runners. There's Kyle. He only went 147, almost 148 miles an hour. And that was good only for 24th fastest on the grid. So it is a little surprising that he's doing this well. I guess it was another one of those legendary Wood Brothers pit stops.
And Jack Root is with Leonard Wood.
Well, you take a look at Leonard Wood, and he looks as if he's lounging on a Sunday afternoon right now. Leonard, the run from the back of the pack, pretty darn good for Kyle right now.
Well, he seems to be running a little bit better on new tires than he does old tires, but I think he's doing real good, and we may have to make a chassis change a little later on, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Is he pushing the car at all? Is he really testing the limits of the car? Is he holding some back?
Well, he usually, just kind of paces himself and drives, what he thinks best, so we kind of leave that up to him.
Well, why are you sitting down? How come you're not standing up like the rest of the team?
Just resting my back a little bit.
Well, I think he deserves a rest after the number of years he's been on the Grand National Circuit.
All right, Jack, that's Kyle Petty running in 4th position. There are 20 cars on the lead lap. Now, we gave you the top 6 just a few moments ago. Running in 7th spot is Harry Gann. 8th is Tim Richmond. 9th is Cale Yarborough. And 10th is Ricky Rudd. 11th is Darrell Waltrip. 12th is Greg Sachs. 13th, Benny Parsons. 14th is Ron Bouchard. 15th is Phil Parsons. 16th position is Rusty Wallace. In 17th is Buddy Baker. 18th is Lake Speed. 19th, Bobby Hillen Jr. 20th position is Bobby Allison. And 21st is Ken Schrader, who is a lap down.
For those of you who might be new to Grand National Racing, what Leonard meant by new versus old tires, of course, everybody uses new tires. They are vintage of this week. But new tires refers to tires that have not had too very many competitive laps on them. You come in for a pit stop and you put tires on. 2 if it's under a yellow flag condition, 4 if under a green. And hopefully those are tires that you've had an opportunity to scuff in a little bit in practice the day before. The tires become classified as old tires after they've been on the race car for about 30 competitive laps on a track like this.
Well, the average speed at the end of 60 laps, hello to you guys too, 134.095 miles an hour. The race record is held by Darrell Waltrip. He established that on July 30th of 1978. The average speed, 142.540 miles an hour. The time of the race was a little over 3 hours and 30 minutes.
We have seen Bodine have a very good day. Remember, he was fast here before. He finished, I believe it was 4th in the race back in June. Even though this is classified definitely as an Eastern race, a lot of the Eastern drivers historically have not done well here. In addition to Bodine, Bouchard, and Greg Sachs are also in this race. The Eastern drivers have had a tough road to hoe for the most part in Grand National stock car racing in the South, but for those of you who are historians, remember the names of Jim Green, Pete Hamilton, Dick Linder. Now, those are some of the guys who have run competitively in Grand National racing. Reed, of course, from Peekskill, New York, he had 7 wins. Hamilton and Linder had 3 and 4 each, but right now it looks like Bodine and Bouchard are about to make, and add Greg Sachs to that batch, the biggest splash that Eastern drivers have ever made in this type of race.
Race settling down here. We've seen no major battle for the lead. However, back in the pack, there are some cars contesting position. Juan Bouchard leads Phil Parsons down across the start-finish line. Right behind Phil Parsons is Greg Sachs in car number 77. Rusty Wallace is right there also.
Now, Bouchard's been, things have been coming along lately. You know, they had all kinds of disappointments in the early part of the season, but they finished a few races in the last couple of months. There's Phil Parsons getting a little bit out of the groove. Greg Sachs got a look there in the middle. Whoa, he's getting chopped down a little bit there by Phil Parsons, but everything falls in order. There is Rusty Wallace, who's won an ASA race in recent weeks at the Milwaukee racetrack. He's done well down south running with the All-Pro Series. He's had some success with the short tracks in recent weeks.
We're watching 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th positions here. They're beginning to get strung out just a little bit. There's Wallace, followed by Greg Sachs, and right behind Sachs is Buddy Baker in car number 88. Well, you mentioned a few minutes ago, Larry, the $10,000 that will be paid at the halfway mark at the completion of lap number 100. That's something we have to begin to think about. You remember the great contest between Jeff Bodine and Bill Elliott that occurred last month here at the Pocono International Raceway. And it looks like that these 3 guys who are staying up front, namely Neil Bonnet and Jeff Bodine and Bill Elliott, are just kind of waiting around for that 100th lap, and they're going to make a run for it.
Yeah, I would say that it did what it was supposed to do. It was quite a lure because remember that exciting lap.
Jeff Bodine now moves to the inside of Neil Bonnet and tests him, and Jeff Bodine moves back into the lead. And Bill Elliott also sneaking up on the back bumper of Neil Bonnet, but not able to grab the position away. They come off of the 3rd corner once again. This will complete lap number 69. Now Bonnet moving to the inside and trying to move alongside Jeff Bodine. They near the end of the straightaway. And let's see what happens as they dive into corner number 1. It's got to be Neil Bonnet going back into the lead. Bodine falls to 2nd.
Some pretty husky racing, I'll tell you, for lap number 69, beginning lap number 70. Neil Bonnet just decided that, hey, I've had enough of this for a while. I want to lead. I want to get that cool, fresh air going into the hood and engine compartment of my Chevrolet, and Bodine didn't really want to give it up, but Neil seemed to get just a little bit of extra jet propulsion off of the draft coming down the long 3/5 mile straightaway. Here's Bodine. He's going to come back. Jeff Bodine, and now they are between turns 2 and 3. This is a short stretch going into the relatively flat turn number 3. Bill Elliott decides, I'm going to follow. Neil is caught on the outside. He is out of the lane. You see he's in the light gray stuff. He doesn't have nearly the traction the cars on the inside do. Bill Elliott goes off the grass. He slides up. He touches Neil Bonnet just a little bit. Neil doing a little bit of fishtailing, but it's okay. Everything's all right.
Great racing here for 2nd position. Bill Elliott to the inside and Neil Bonnet to the outside. Jeff Bodine continues to maintain the lead. Bodine last year here in the Summer 500 finished in 12th position, and in the Vanscoy Diamond Mines 500 just last month here at Pocono, he finished 4th after running up front nearly all of the way, but unfortunately he got a bad set of tires on his last pit stop, and it dropped him to a 4th place finish.
You know, Bob, you watch these guys race, and you really lose the idea that they are doing 120, 130, 140 at the end of the long stretch, about 170 miles an hour. They make it look very easy. It literally does look like the old Johnny Tillotson song, poetry in motion. But I can only tell you, and you get just a touch of the feeling of that by the in-car camera in Lake Speed's car, it's very violent out there. Things are happening very quickly. Even though the wall goes by fast, but not rapidly fast, as you're watching at home on the television, see this long telephoto lens shot coming on the long stretch. Things look almost leisurely, but they are not. Even at every second of the time out there, when the drivers do have the 15, 18 seconds to relatively rest in the long front stretch, things are happening very quickly, and it's a whole heck of a lot more violent than what you would ever expect unless you experience it yourself.
Running back just outside of the top 10 is Ron Bouchard from Fitchburg, Massachusetts, in car number 47. That's the Valvoline Buick, owned by Jack Beebe, and the crew chief on the car nowadays is Jake Suitcase Elder. And there is a little bit of talk down in the pit area this weekend about the Buick for 1986. Now, they claim that the car isn't as aerodynamic in 1985. Here's Jack Arute with more on that.
When NASCAR first downsized their automobiles in 1981, Buick was the hot setup on the circuit. In fact, they won 2 consecutive manufacturers' championships on the Winston Cup Trail. In 1983, however, the story was Chevrolet, due to its more sloped nose and riding a little bit lower to the ground. In 1984, well, we all know the story has been Ford Thunderbird. Why is the Buick not as competitive as it was, let's say, in 81 and 82? Well, there's several reasons. First, the nose has remained basically the same since 81, while other cars have gotten more rounded. It's like pushing a plow through the air. The back glass is also a cause of concern because it's such a sharp angle as the air comes off the back glass and heads back towards the rear spoiler. Most of the Buick racing teams, however, are smiling lately due to some exclusive photographs that we've received that show that in 1986, Buick may be indeed the hot setup. As you see, the nose is more rounded, it's sleeker, it looks more like the Ford Thunderbird.
The grille area has also been reduced, and that design modification should help produce less drag. But the most dramatic change comes in the rear window design. The 86 Buick will incorporate a sloped window, thus allowing a cleaner and more aerodynamic flow of air. And from these photos, it looks like the rear side windows might be just a tad too large. But we've learned that Buick will offer a special Grand National design option that'll drastically close them up. And when you look at this rudimentary drawing, you can see how the 1986 Buick will look in race trim. Based upon this information, we think 1986 might just be another year when Grand National teams say, wouldn't you really rather have a Buick?
And that design is quite a bit different from the Buick that you see on the racetrack right now, driven by Ron Bouchard. A tremendous crowd on hand here this afternoon for the running of the Summer 500. We're glad you're with us. We'll be right back on ESPN. Pocono, where Jeff Bodine has about a 1.5 second lead now on Neil Bonnet, with Bill Elliott running in 3rd position and Kyle Petty still in 4th place. 75 laps have been completed in this 200-lap race, so the halfway point and the Barclays American $10,000 bonus will come in 25 more laps.
Jeff Bodine, Harry Hyde, car number 5. They have not won a race yet in 1985. There is 2nd place Neil Bonnet and 3rd place Bill Elliott. Bodine also does not own a pole for the 1985 season. If you were with us at the top of the show, we told you that he was the fastest qualifier on Friday here at Pocono, but they were disqualified for allegedly using illegal fuel. I got to tell you that in canvassing informally the rest of the crews down in the pits this morning, they all felt as though it is something that everybody does from time to time. And I think the crews more or less kind of sided with the Bodine Hyde group rather than with NASCAR. Taking NASCAR side of it, you can't check every car every time. It's something that you have to do on a spot basis. It so happens that this time, in the opinion of NASCAR, as we look at Tommy Ellison in the Friedlander car who has come to a stop here at Pocono, he's obviously left the race car, he is out. But in defense again of NASCAR, the Jeff Bodine people, the NASCAR people, they say they cannot check everybody every time, and it's just something that every once in a while you have to crack down on.
Let's go down to Dick Bergeron. Dick?
Well, the whole Hellas team has just run to the other end of the pits. They're going to try to get the car going. Its problem apparently is that the fuel pump is broken. Crew Chief David Ift, who's recently joined the organization, just ran by here with a shirt that says Norman on it. The team is struggling. They're just really getting started in Grand National Racing. They're trying desperately. Ellis, a former champion driver in late model sports and racing, in trouble, stalled on turn 1.
Yeah, it's just at the exit to the pit area. It's sitting in the grass, so it's not endangering any other driver on the racetrack. Let's go down to the other end of the pit area and Jack Arute.
And Tommy Ellis is taking what is called the longest walk back down to the garage area. Tommy, you're out of the race. Fuel pickup problems, we understand, on the car.
Fuel pump went out on the car, but we never did have it hooked up. We were just anyway out there. We wasn't doing anything but riding around. We kept trying to adjust the car, but nothing we was doing was seeming, nothing we did really helped us, and we were just out in left field.
This Friedlander team is brand new. It's a dynamite opportunity for you, but I know Tommy Ellis. He doesn't like to run as a back marker. How long do you think it's going to take before you're going to be able to get it all together and be one of the superstars on the Grand National Circuit?
Well, right now, it looks like it's going to take a long damn time.
Well, he makes the walk back, gentlemen, and that's a long walk, especially when you're Tommy Ellis.
This was only Tommy Ellis's fourth start in the 1985 Grand National season. He competed at Charlotte, at Michigan, and at Daytona. And here today, he started in 19th, but is out of the race.
Also, Bob, that's only his second time here. David Itt has helped him this weekend, and it was a one-race deal, although David, being an experienced mechanic, may stay with the team for the rest of the year. We'll have to wait and see.
Neil Bonnet back in the lead, taking the position over from Jeff Bodine. There are 20 cars still on the lead lap. Neil Bonnet is the leader, Bodine second, Bill Elliott is third, Kyle Petty running in fourth spot. We have had 3 caution periods for a total of 9 laps. Don Hume has spun a couple of times, resulting in 2 of the 3 yellow flags, but no contact with the retaining wall during those Don Hume spins. Running in 19th position is Bobby Allison in car number 22, running in 19th. There he is. Right behind him is Ken Schrader, and we anticipate the next series of pit stops in about 2 more laps.
Well, Bobby Allison, of course, the center of some controversy the last couple of weeks since the win of the Dyegard R&D car, actually the Gardner racing car at Daytona earlier this year. And he had a qualifying time that perhaps was a little disappointing to him this weekend here at Pocono. He has not really been able to climb out of about 15th to 20th position. He's been laboring hard all day. Now, remember, this is his own team. The car looks exactly like it did when he drove it under the Dyegard stable banners, but it is his own team. It's something he has done before. As a matter of fact, he has driven for 13 different car owners, including himself, in his Grand National career. About a third of his career starts have been in cars that he himself has owned. 13 of his 81 wins have come in his own car. But his last win as a car owner back in Richmond in 1974. Whether or not it works out this time, only time will tell. The team with Bobby as the driver has been struggling.
Terry Labonte going very slowly on the racetrack between turns 1 and 2. He's just entering the tunnel turn. Terry Labonte's made an early pit stop, but the car was smoking very badly. We thought they had the problem corrected, but obviously something has gone wrong here with Terry Labonte's car. He's pulling it to the grass, to the inside of the racetrack.
Yeah, I don't think he thinks Bobby can get all the way around. By the way, I'd like to make mention of Lisa Meal. Steve Meal is one of the crewmen on the Terry Labonte car, and we understand that Lisa, his wife, was involved in a very serious automobile accident within the last week and suffered serious head injuries, some plastic surgery, but she's at home recovering, watching the race. And Steve and the rest of the crew, Lisa said to say to you, hey, keep going for it, babe, because we are.
Labonte has pulled off the racetrack using the road course on the infield. Terry Labonte appears to be out of this race. Neil Bonnet continues to lead, and Jeff Bodine continues to run in second position. We'll be right back with more from Pocono International Raceway. Bobby Allison back out onto the racetrack after having completed his pit stop. They replaced rubber on the right side of the car, and they filled it with fuel, but he had a momentary meeting with a crew member, Larry.
Yeah, he did. It wasn't real serious, but it was reminiscent of an old Harry Gann incident that we had on ESPN. Oh, the guy holding the signboard stood out there just a little bit too long as Bobby comes to a halt. That may have been a little early, but I think it was on the verge of being a routine pit stop. Bobby, 35 laps from his last pit stop. There didn't seem to be any panic during that pit stop.
We're sorry to see the defending Winston Cup champion out of the race, and he's with Dick Berggren.
Terry, and early to still trying to start the car. What is your problem?
Well, we don't really know. I guess something in the ignition or something went out. It just cut off.
Terry Labonte, ignition problems. The crew is working on it. Jack Arute.
Down here with the crew member who was sidekick here in Bobby Allison's pit, an old-time racer himself, Red Skagel. Red, you almost put Red Eagle on top of the hood of that car.
He didn't stop quick enough.
Well, you didn't seem too concerned, though. He looked at you, you shake back at him. You're kind of used to this. You're an old hat at it, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd rather be driving, though. I don't like it in here.
Well, that's the story from down here in Bobby Allison's pit. And remember, guys, this is a pickup crew for today. You know who's changing the right front tire? Davey Allison.
And Davey Allison was supposed to have participated in an ARCA race yesterday here at Pocono, but instead they decided to allow that car to be run by Bobby here today. By the way, that ARCA race that we hope you saw yesterday on ESPN Live was won by Bob Shack, and it was a great race.
Yeah, it really was. By the way, Red Skagel driver, many feature wins, many championships at the Beltsville Speedway. Here comes our leader, Jeff Bodine, in at the Beltsville Speedway in Maryland.
This pit stop comes on lap number 84. Jeff Bodine and the Levi Garrett machine bringing the car to a stop now, and the crew goes to work on the car. The jacks are under it. The car is being raised on the right side, and the tires are being changed. The fuel is being put in. The clock continues to tick off. 13, 14. It's a good pit stop.
It really is.
14.1. Remember, his last stop was over 20 seconds, so he did a very fine job this time.
Well, high teens or 20s is normally the mark of acceptability of a pit stop, but if you can get below 16 seconds, you've turned in a good one, and that was a good one. Now, if we remain green flag during this next series of pit stops, which are obviously coming up, Jeff Bodine should come out easily on top of all the other front runners.
And, of course, Jeff is watching for that 100-lap mark, which will come 15 laps from now. He'd like to be in the lead because the driver who leads that lap will earn $10,000 bonus dollars. Neil Bonnet also comes in. The Junior Johnson crew will go to work on this car to change the rubber and refuel it.
You can see that Neil is touch fenders, you might say, or at least touch fender to tire with somebody else. Some scuff marks on the right side of the rear quarter panel of that car. Remember, anything less than 16 seconds is going to be a good one. That time on Jeff Bodine, what was it, Bob? About 14.9? Was that what it was?
14.1.
This is an excellent stop.
It's even better.
Wow.
13.6. Kyle Petty is also in the pits. He was running in 4th position. He moves back out. So does Tim Richmond. Cale Yarborough is in the pits right now, as is David Pearson and Benny Parson.
Boy, it is happening very quickly. Now, I did not see Jeff go by. I was watching the cars with you in the pits, getting a refreshment of fuel. I don't know if Jeff has the lead or not. Neil, with a great pit stop, will try and find them next time they come around. There is Greg Sachs and Bill Elliott. They are two of the other cars right now running up front, at least temporarily. And here comes Mr. Elliott into the pits.
Bill Elliott diving to the inside of the racetrack, coming into the pit area. And now we'll watch the Elliott team go to work on that car. Brings the Ford to a halt, and the crew jumps out and goes to work. Windshield is being cleaned off, and tires being changed. There is the fuel that's being put in.
You know, Bob, they are on their way to just an incredible year in terms of dollars won. You realize that he has won over $600,000 already, that if you win the points championship, that is worth an additional $250,000, and he has the possibility, of course, on ESPN at Darlington later in the year, winning $1 million. He may be en route to the first $2 million year in racing history.
And that's what it looks like from the inside of the race car as the windshield is clean. We're with Lake Speed in the Nationwide Auto Parts car. Tim Richmond, meanwhile, is back in for another stop. He overshot the pit last time and now has had to come in for a second stop. And there he goes out onto the racetrack once again. Lake Speed, however, remains in the pits, and they're having trouble, it looks like, on the right side of the car. Now he moves out. Darrell Waltrip also comes in for a stop.
I'll bet you that Tim Richmond lost the lap on that stop. We'll have to see how it all filters out once this session of pit stops ends, but I'll bet you Richmond is probably down a lap. Tough break, because he certainly was one of the fastest cars in the first half of this race.
Look at Junior cleaning the windshield with a squirt bottle and a sponge rather than the traditional squeegee that most of the teams use. On the racetrack, the leader at this point is Ron Bouchard in car number 47. Second is Neil Bonnet. Third, Jeff Bodine. Fourth, Bill Elliott. And fifth is Kyle Petty. I don't believe that Bouchard has pitted, though.
That's right.
He will be coming in soon.
Yeah, Ron Bouchard will be coming in the next lap or two, undoubtedly.
There is Ron on the racetrack, running right behind Lenny Pond in car number 17. More of our live coverage in just a moment. Bob Jenkins, Larry Newber, Dick Berggren, and Jack Arute back at Pocono International Raceway for the running of the Summer 500 Grand National Race. Neil Bonnet, the leader, Jeff Bodine running in second position, and Bill Elliott is now third. David Pearson in the Haas Ellington-owned Chattanooga Chew Chevy is in the pit area, and here is Jack Arute.
And we've created some sort of a traffic jam here, but we caught up with David Pearson. David, you're out of the race in the last time that you'll be driving number 21 for Haas Ellington. What put you out?
Well, it is. Of course, the reason that we went out this time, the tie rod end broke. Of course, you can understand that because the fast we running and the track is awful rough going across the tunnel over there, so it just broke the tie rod end off.
What about the rest of the competition out there? We were remarking while waiting to go on the air that I can't recall drivers pushing so hard so early here at Pocono before.
Well, everybody now, the way they got the points set up, that you have to lead the race, get so many points, and then most of these guys are running for the points, and they all want to lead the race, and they are. Just every one of them seem like it's a last lap deal.
Now, what about Talladega, Alabama? We understand you'll be wheeling a Ford Thunderbird. It'll be maintained by your son, Ricky. But there's the rumor out that it was a Junior Johnson Thunderbird and that there's some influence there. Set the record straight.
No, it's not Junior's. That's for sure. It'll be my car, and we'll keep it there in Spartanburg.
Okay, that's the story, and we've got it right here on pit road.
All right, David Pearson out of the race, but we'll look for him on down the road in the NASCAR Winston Cup season. There are your two leaders once again. It is Neil Bonnet and Jeff Bodine. The hood on the Richard Petty STP Pontiac is up, and work being done on that car while Richard sits helplessly in the pit area.
Boy, they've had a long, long year, Bob. I talked with Mike Beam, his crew chief, earlier this year. They said, you know, we're way down on 18th place in points, and we feel like we just got to go all out. We got to go for it. They had hoped that their own hybrid engine would do well here today, but it just hasn't apparently. He's been in the pits 3 or 4 times in the last 3 or 4 laps.
In less than 9 laps, the 100 lap mark will come the halfway point, and the leader of the lap will win $10,000 from Barclays America. Remember, last time, Bodine and Bill Elliott dueled right to the 3rd turn before Jeff Bodine pulled ahead and won the $10,000. Right now, it looks like it could be a battle between Neil Bonnet and Jeff Bodine for that 10 grand, but we'll see how things go in the next 8 laps. An interesting statistic, 70% of the winners of this race, the Summer 500, have led at the halfway point.
Now, as we watch this race, let's set it up just a little bit for you. Remember, as Bob told you, now 8 laps to go. We go for the money on lap number 100. What will happen the next time that Neil Bonnet goes down the front stretch, you'll watch that serpentine motion as he goes down toward the inside of the racetrack. He, by the way, was the one who invented it here. Most of the drivers didn't think that you could draft here at Pocono, but what they have learned is that you can on the long front stretch. Jeff Bodine will try to follow Neil Bonnet because he can run normally just a little faster if he's in his wake of air. So you'll watch Jeff try to emulate what Neil does this time as they come out of turn number 3 and down the front stretch. Jeff will try to creep up on Neil during the next 7 laps, hoping to make his move, probably coming out of the tunnel turn number 2, through the short chute there between 2 and 3, and then around turn number 3. We'll see how it goes.
Back in the car of Lake Speed, we're watching out the rear of the car, and I'm not sure, it is Bobby Allison in car number 22 who is behind Lake Speed now as they're out on the backstretch. Just to update you on the Terry Labonte situation, the official reason for his being in the garage area right now, and at least temporarily out of the race, a faulty distributor.
Well, you can really see the cars and the drivers get knocked around when they go over turn number 2. It's like being knocked around by a heavyweight prize fighter. And if you tiptoe too low, get down off the racetrack going in the long turn number 3 where they're in right now, you can see you also get a pretty good jolt. Now here we come off of turn number 3, down the long front stretch, 3,700 feet, 3/5 of a mile, 150, 155, 60, 165, 170 miles an hour. And now you got to take a big deep breath because you go into a 14-degree bank corner, 675 feet long, but you really have to pump the brakes hard because if you don't, you skate right out of the groove and right up into the cement wall, and the cement wall remains to this day to be undefeated.
And it's pretty much clear sailing in front of Lake Speed as he moves out of turn number 1 down the Long Pond straightaway.
The track,
94 laps have been completed, Larry. We're only 6 away from the halfway point. And at that point, we'll have the Barclays American Run for the Money, $10,000. Come back with us for that in just a moment after these messages. Greg Sachs, the winner of the Firecracker 400 at Daytona, pulls behind the wall here at Pocono, and this is why. A lot of smoke coming from that car as he came off of corner number 1.
Engine, period. That's all that could be wrong coming out of the tailpipe like that. Heavy-duty smoke all the way around this racetrack. You know, as we look at the number 77 of Sachs, that was an amazing story down at Daytona, but who would have thought, seeing him here, a couple months ago when he was running the Hilton car, when he finished 16th, he finished the race, but that he would have gone on to win down at Daytona. He entered the 85 season, you know, with only 1 career top 10, but now he's a winner.
The Lake Speed with our in-car camera running right behind the leader of this race, Neil Bonnet. And we are only a little less than 3 laps away from the midway point, and Neil Bonnet has put some distance between himself and second place Jeff Bodine. And you can see how Neil got the left side tires off of the track once again there in the tunnel turn. It looks like that Neil Bonnet could walk away with the $10,000 at the halfway point. Let's go to Dick Berggren, who's with Greg Sachs.
And Greg Sachs is sitting in his car, and there's a big puddle of white water underneath it coming out of the head.
Well, unfortunately, we're having some audio problems.
Have we got it now?
Go ahead,
okay,
Dick.
we're with Greg Sachs again. I think we've got it now. Greg, what happened?
Well, I don't know for sure, Dick. It seems like a head gasket or something let go in the engine. It seems like we're out for the day.
Disappointed Greg Sachs. Last time out, he won.
His comment about the head gasket, I think, stems from the fact that there apparently was a lot of water. You could see the water dripping out of the exhaust pipe as they came to a stop. A lot of smoke, also a lot of steam, so that's why they're speculating head gasket, at least at this point.
Neil Bonnet is between turns 2 and 3 now, and when he comes down this time, it'll be 99 laps, so he's got just a little more than 1 lap to go before earning the $10,000. Harry Gant was the winner of the Summer 500 last year, and Harry led at the midway point. And I'm sure that Neil Bonnet is hoping for the same kind of outcome here this afternoon. Less than a lap to go now, and $10,000 will be in the pocket of Neil Bonnet.
Well, I'll tell you why, and for the sake of our viewers, why this is significant. The guys don't take this lightly. They really view lap number 100 as the first unofficial finish, if you will, in this race. So it's not that they've all kind of given up and said, Neil, go ahead and take it. I can guarantee you that Jeff Bodine is continuing to work hard. There you see Neil Bonnet flag at Terry Labonte, or wave at Terry Labonte as he goes by. And I can guarantee you they took this very seriously. Bonnet has just buried everybody, including Jeff Bodine. So this is a very significant development in this race.
All right, he is approaching turn number 3 now, and about to complete lap number 100. Neil Bonnet from Bessemer, Alabama, and the number 12 Junior Johnson-owned Budweiser Chevrolet comes off of corner number 3. Here it is, the halfway point, and Neil Bonnet collects $10,000 from Barclays American.
You can see how excited the crew was about this and how they took it all in. Oh, there's finally a wave of acknowledgement. But seriously, I'll tell you, the crews do think about it. They plan on it. This is something they were all shooting for. And I guarantee you that Jeff Bodine is at least temporarily dissatisfied, temporarily disappointed. But you know, the disappointment is now over. Now it's on with the rest of the race. They are still really a candidate, needless to say, to win this event.
A lap ago, you saw Terry Labonte back out on the racetrack. His distributor problems have been corrected, and he's back out on the race. Let's go down to the pit area once again.
You want to know why these guys are so unemotional, gentlemen? Because that's the way Junior Johnson wants it. There was a race a couple of years ago when Darrell Waltrip, when it was only a 1-car team, was leading in Darlington, South Carolina. With just about 4 or 5 laps to go, they were all excited, patting themselves on the back. They felt they had the victory. Then, if you recall, and you recall your history well, Waltrip sputtered down on the pit road and was passed by Harry Gant. Junior Johnson has never let the crew members forget that.
Mike Stolarczyk is spinning down off of the 3rd turn. Mike Stolarczyk, car number 87, spins at just about the same place that Don Hume spun earlier in the show. his car is rested at the entrance to the pit area, and it is not going to bring out a caution.
Well, this is the Buck Baker driving school car. Mike Stolarczyk is a graduate of Buck School, and he and Buck got together to put together this team for him to run competitively in the race today. So needless to say, this is Mike's first opportunity to see the big, broad yellow stripe on the back bumper. He's a rookie in Grand National Racing. He got off of the racetrack coming off of turn number 3. He's in the grass. He's getting no traction, taking a very wild ride. You see bits of rubber coming off of the tires of the race car. He makes no contact with any wall, but boy, that was certainly a thrill for this driver who's in his first time ever Grand National race.
Not a bad job of driving, keeping that car away from the inside barrier. Stolarczyk is still stalled at the entrance to the pit area, but still the yellow is not out. Lake Speed continues to motor around the 2.5-mile Pocono International Raceway, and we'll be right back. Back at Pocono International Raceway, where the yellow flag has come out, Doug Hevron spun down in turn number 1, bringing out our 4th caution flag of the afternoon. Here is Neil Bonnet coming around to the line, leading the race, and he has made a pit stop under this yellow, and so has Jeff Bodine in second place. So we have now completed 104 laps of this race, and our mid-race recap shows you that the pole sitter with this race was Darrell Waltrip, qualifying at 152.220 miles an hour, but he's had overheating problems. Bill Elliott started alongside in row number 1, and Bill at the moment is running in 3rd place. The time so far, 1 hour and 48 minutes. The average speed, 138.419. We've had 11 leaders and 25 lead changes. We are now under our 4th caution of the afternoon. For 3 caution periods, we had 9 laps. As far as attrition is concerned, Dale Earnhardt is out of the event. So is Dave Marcus. J.D. McDuffie is out. Tommy Ellis also has retired from competition. Others who have dropped out of the race include David Pearson, Don Hume, and Greg Sachs. The top 10 at this point, Neil Bonnet is the leader, Jeff Bodine second, Bill Elliott is running 3rd, followed by Kyle Petty and Darrell Waltrip. 6 through 10, Harry Gant. Cale Yarborough is 7th, Benny Parsons 8th, Ricky Rudd 9th, and Ron Bouchard is now running in 10th position. That's the halfway point of the Summer 500. And the mid-race recap has been brought to you by Coney, makers of shock absorbers and suspension kits for all performance cars. Coney, proven superior. Back at Pocono International Raceway and the running of the Summer 500 for Grand National cars. We are trying to get the field sorted out here. They look like they're all scrambled up out there on the backstretch, but they're realigning for a start here. With 106 laps completed, we are yellow because of a spin down in turn number 1 involving Doug Hevron.
Well, they're supposed to get 2 abreast. The guys who are 1 or more lap down get the inside. The guys who are on the lead lap get the outside. Richard Petty may be the fly in the ointment there. I can't tell. The drivers are thinking, well, maybe Richard's going to pit this time. If he is going to pit, he can drop way down to the inside of the racetrack and make what in effect is a 3rd lane, as long as he does not pass the race car. And everybody's trying to figure out, well, gee, is Richard going to pit or is he just going to stay out on the racetrack? But they need to get in 2 lines.
Terry Labonte and Trevor Boyes have both been black flagged and penalized a lap for passing the pace car. We anticipate a green flag this next time around. The leader is Neil Bonnet, and in second position is Jeff Bodine. Bill Elliott is 3rd, and Kyle Petty running in 4th spot.
Bob, I'm pretty sure the guys right in front, Ron Bouchard, Rusty Wallace at the outside row now, Tim Richmond, are the entire length of the track behind Neil Bonnet. They're trying to stay on the lead lap right now. At least the first 2 cars are. Richmond may be a lap down or maybe 2 laps down. Remember, he had that extra pit stop when he overshot the pit.
Now the field accelerates coming down this long 3,700-foot straightaway. It's a 3 abreast contest going into corner number 1.
Wow, it really was. Ron Bouchard saying in the MRN radio people that while hanging out to dry, Ron Bouchard was left hung out to dry at that time. But you know, he held his own. Look at there. He's still right outside of Tim Richmond. Richmond had the line going through turn number 1, but Ron Bouchard really stuck, and they're holding back the rest of the field. There's Bodine. See the yellow and white number 5 moving to the inside of Neil Bonnet. There's Bonnet on the outside of the red number 12. Ronnie Bouchard trying to get around the outside of Richmond. Richmond moves around a little bit that time, coming around turn number 2. Bouchard thinks the better of it, drops behind him, and here comes Bonnet. Boy, is that car strong, Bob.
Neil Bonnet picking off one of those ahead of him. That's Rusty Wallace as they come off of corner number 3 onto the main straightaway. Tim Richmond, Ron Bouchard, then Neil Bonnet and Rusty Wallace, but Neil Bonnet is the leader of the race. The other 2 drivers ahead of him trying to stay on the lead lap. Bonnet goes to the inside and puts Ron Bouchard a lap down, and again gets the left side rubber off the grass, and it gets a little squirrely coming off of the corner, but holds his own.
Yeah, it takes a moment just to recover when something like that happens. You can see that word momentum again. Bonnet just doesn't have it. Once things get straightened out after he goes through turn number 2, there goes Yarbrough, goes down to the inside. Harry Gant is right there on the outside. Lenny Pond, they're going on turn number 2. You got to get 1 abreast. Well, 2 abreast if you're Yarbrough or Gant, and everything is okay.
Gary letting that car slide high, losing a couple of positions. Yarbrough gets by, so does Benny Parsons. And now Neil Bonnet goes around Tim Richmond, and Richmond goes a lap down.
Richmond may be 2 laps down now, maybe as many as 3. I'm not really sure. Remember again that pit stop. Bouchard running 3rd there in line, Wallace running 4th in line, and Richmond running 2nd in line are all at least 1 lap down. There's Kyle Petty, you saw him move down. There's Richmond taking a look to the inside of Neil Bonnet again. Jeff Bodine in the brightly yellow painted nose. He's still right in it. Boy, it's a beautiful sight coming down that long front stretch going into what really is a pretty tricky corner. Turn 2, we've commented about that many times, but turn 1, it's the highest speed turn in some respects because it has such a bank, but it's a very abrupt turn. The most abrupt corner on the racetrack, beyond the shadow of any doubt.
109 laps completed. Neil Bonnet, the leader, having started this race from 21st position. And Jeff Bodine, running 2nd, started from 22nd spot. Harry Gant is running at the moment in 7th position. There he is in car number 33. He is a former winner here at Pocono.
Yeah, Mr. Second Place, and I don't say that with derogatory either. I'll tell you, that is a real solid indication of just how consistent this team is. Harry has won in his Grand National career. I guarantee you he is a winner in 1985, and he's also won 7 times in his entire career. So to call this guy Mr. Second Place maybe is a bit of a misnomer. He's Mr. First and Mr. Second Place. He had a skein of 4 consecutive second-place finishes earlier this year. Places like Dover, Charlotte, Riverside, and Pocono. 4 times in a row he was second. He was also second at Rockingham earlier this year. Though he's never led the points, he's been knocking at the door all year long.
And right ahead of him on the racetrack is Benny Parsons in car number 55. Benny now looking to the inside of Darrell Waltrip. Back on the far side of the racetrack, and Benny sneaks around Darrell Waltrip, or almost does, and Harry Gant looks like maybe bumped Benny Parsons in the rear end of the car. Coming off turn number 3, Parsons and Darrell Waltrip are side by side.
You might say they snuffed each other. No, that's a bad joke. Benny Parsons, among all of the veterans, is probably the guy who has been the most successful here at Pocono. Back to that in just a second. There is second place battle right now, and Bill Elliott emerges from the pack. He goes to the inside of both Ron Bouchard and Jeff Bodine, and Elliott has, for the moment, a comfortable second place. Just to put a period on the Parsons story, he is, among the veterans, the guy who has the most top 5 finishes here at Pocono in his career.
Well, we haven't talked too much or mentioned very much about Bill Elliott this afternoon, but he has been right in there all race long. I don't think he has been more than 3rd or 4th position. But boy, he has been right up there among the leaders, and with 89 laps to go, he has to be considered a favorite to win this race.
Boy, he really does, Bob. We had a report, by the way, incidentally, that 5 Bodine and 47 Bouchard, a couple of the New Englanders in today's race, touch coming down the long front stretch that time. You can see there's that serpentine motion. Bonnet once again trying to shake the rest of the field, but he can't. They all stay in line. Richard Petty dropping way down low, off the pace today. There's Cale Yarborough trying to make a move on Kyle Petty, I believe, on the inside of him. Talking about Elliott, you know, he has still won 4. Get ready for this. It's almost like we've forgotten him, but he's won 4 of the last 7 races on the Grand National Trail. He's won 7 times this year, almost half the races. Needless to say, it's redundant, but what a superlative effort this year by Dan and Early Elliott, who work on the car down in the pits, as well as Bill Elliott, who does one heck of a lot of work on this machine. He's moving in on moving in on Neil, Bob.
He is. He's closing the gap, and as a matter of fact, maybe making a challenge for the lead here. No, he decides to get off the accelerator just a little bit and let Neil have the lead, but let's see what happens as they come off of turn number 3. Perhaps he's setting up Bonnet for a pass here on the main straightaway. Here they are. Across the stripe, Bonnet hangs onto the lead, and Elliott settles back into second position. The average speed of the race at this point, 135.505 miles an hour. Now it's almost a side-by-side contest into turn 1. The rear end on Elliott's car getting around just a little bit. He's not able to pass. He stays in second spot.
Well, as these two do battle out on the speedway, sad to report that Rusty Wallace, the young driver from the St. Louis area, has pulled his car back to the pit area after running in the top 20 all day. As we watch Bonnet and Elliott duel for first and second, third, fourth, and fifth has really heated up. Here comes, oh, I thought that was Benny. That is Phil Parsons in number 66. Jeff Bodine runs third. I believe that Phil in 66 and Ron Bouchard in 47 are a lap down to the rest of the leaders in the race.
That's the information we get. So Jeff Bodine is solidly entrenched in third place here, and the cars behind him are a lap down.
Also was going to comment the last lap that I think that Elliott may be handling just a touch better than what Neil Bonnet is at this stage of the race. See him drafting Neil now. He'll go look to the inside. Do I have enough room to get around? Well, let's see. Yeah, I think I might have the advantage. Can I stick down here? Yes. If I handle good, I'll sneak on the inside. I think I got him. Now can I get the RPMs up? If I haven't hit the brakes too hard, I got good RPMs going on this long pond backstretch. Yeah, I got you that time, Neil.
With confidence, you might say.
Yeah.
Bill Elliott now is in the lead of the Summer 500, but look at Neil Bonnet. He is looking for the opportunity to snatch the lead back from Bill Elliott. Cannot do it, however. Bonnet content to run at least at this point in second position.
Bill really has the advantage right here. This part of the racetrack coming out of turn number 2, going around turn number 3. Watch the difference open up as they go around the long third corner.
Down to the pit area, here's Jack Arute with a comment on Bill Elliott's performance so far.
Well, actually, it's a performance of Neil Bonnet. You know, you were talking, Larry, about the situation with Neil Bonnet that maybe he wasn't handling as well as Bill Elliott. Well, just about 6 laps ago, this staid crew down here all of a sudden just perked right up, and the little hairs in the back of their necks stood up because Neil was hollering. He thought he had a tire going down. So there is definitely a slight handling problem on the Budweiser Chevrolet, and it could be why he's backed out of the throttle just a tad.
So at this point, it is Bill Elliott, followed by Neil Bonnet. Jeff Bodine running third. There is the Miller American car driven by Bobby Allison from Hueytown, Alabama. This is the ARCA car that his son, Davey, normally drives. Bobby earlier this week, or last week actually, announcing that he was leaving the Dyegard racing operation. More on that story in this report.
Since winning the national driving title in 1983, Bobby Allison and Dyegard Racing have had problems. Few wins and discontent came to a head when Director of Operations for Dyegard, Gary Nelson, decided to field a special research and development car. Modified star Greg Sachs was tapped as the driver, and the concept yielded immediate results. The unsponsored and numbered 10 from the Nelson R&D stable captured the Firecracker 400 at Daytona International Speedway on July 4th. For Greg Sachs, it was his first career win, and Dyegard racing team members defended their use of an R&D vehicle by saying that Bobby Allison refused to try unconventional race setups and combinations.
I think I was willing to try everything they wanted to try, and I made myself available 7 days a week for any testing that they wanted to do.
But did the win by Sachs precipitate a final divorce between Dyegard and Bobby?
Well, it was one of the things that was certainly an effect on the decision. All the all the conditions affected the decision, but we had contractually agreed to have a one-car effort with all of the effort going to one car, and that really was the key.
So just 5 days ago, Bobby Allison announced his final departure from the DiGard racing operation. And he comes here to Pocono with his own car, built in his own shop and maintained by his own people, all of it located in Hueytown, Alabama. For Bobby Allison, his assistance will come from Donnie Allison and his brother Davey, but the number will remain 22 and it'll still carry the Miller American sponsorship. What about DiGard and Greg Sachs and the old number 22? Well, it's become number 77. Miller remains, and Sachs has a dream ride, one that New England modified fans are excited about, but one that Sachs figured might never come his way.
I've been such a realist myself, and I never like to set my sights too high to get too much disappointment, and they were right. I'm here.
How about Bobby Allison? Does he think he's got a point to prove at Pocono?
No. Bobby Allison's had a tremendously enjoyable career with, fortunately, some very, very rewarding successes along the way, and Bobby Allison just wants to go race.
Well, the movement of Greg Sachs out of the Gardner R&D car into the number 77 car has caused Bill Gardner to put a help wanted sign in front of his garage. He's looking for somebody to drive a Pontiac R&D car next weekend at Talladega. He said he called A.J. Foyt, he talked to Mario Andretti, he talked to little Al Unser as well, and they expressed interest, but Michigan was canceled today, so they're going to have to be back there next weekend. Now, he's looking for a driver. He wants somebody with experience. Maybe one of our drivers could help him out.
Now, Bob, and here is the DiGard response to that situation. They said, and Gary Nelson told me on the phone, and again, this is their point of view, that everything that they learned at Daytona was available to Bobby Allison should he want to use it. Gary also told me that the goal from the beginning was to make Bobby a winner all along. Bobby has very much a different viewpoint on that, so there you have it, both sides of the argument.
Bobby Allison running in the top 20 at this point here at the Summer 500 in Pocono International Raceway. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back with more of our live coverage in a moment. With 120 laps completed, the leader is Bill Elliott. Second now is Cale Yarborough. An interesting graphic here. We've been talking all along about the great year that Bill Elliott has been having. Here are some other good seasons down through the years. David Pearson won 62% of the races in '73. Elliott has won 47% so far this year. Pearson again with a 45% winning percentage in '76. Petty won 43% in '75, and Waltrip 40% in 1982. Waltrip won 39% in '81. Leroy Yarborough won 37% of the races in 1969. Cale with 33% in '74 and '78, and Bobby Allison had a 32% winning percentage in '72.
Bob, all those numbers come from since the season has been shortened to about 30 races. Now, Richard Petty did have a great year back in 1967, I believe it was, as we look at this real spirited tussle for probably about fourth on back, fourth, fifth, or sixth in that group. Petty won 60% of his races in a 50-race season, or almost a 50-race season back in '67. But Bill Elliott having what you might call the second-best year in modern history of NASCAR, although 1 point in his favor. David Pearson, when he won 62%, he ran an abbreviated schedule. He won, I think, 11 of the 18 races that he competed in that year.
Let's go down to Jack Arute, who is with Bill Gardner.
Well, you heard Dick Bergeron talk about the help wanted ad that was placed by this man, Bill Gardner, the president of Gardner Racing Incorporated and DiGard Racing. Bill, what about it? We know Andretti's not available, nor is Unser or A.J. Foyt. Who's it going to be next week?
Well, we're still looking over a bunch of resumes of people that have called us, but to be honest with you, we haven't chosen anyone yet, but we're still looking. It's very difficult. We put a help wanted ad out. We feel we have a competitive R&D car to field at Talladega, and the number of people that are available are few and far between that are you know, that are potential winners.
Are you saying that this time, rather than tapping a relative unknown like a Greg Sachs out of a modified division, that you're trying to find a more established driver, maybe from Formula One, maybe from kart, maybe from some other form of motorsports?
Definitely. We feel that at Talladega, especially at, you know, 200+ miles an hour, and if you have a car that's capable of leading and racing with the best of the NASCAR boys, you know, you have to have an experienced guy who can get up there and mix it up with them in draft and potentially go on to win. And then now I've looked into the kart circuit, and obviously the Michigan race being postponed last week, Jackie, you know, being postponed to Sunday, the day of the Talladega race, obviously leaves out all the kart boys. But, you know, maybe somebody else is out there that we haven't thought of. And we will not field a car unless we have somebody that we feel is capable of winning.
Well, things sure have changed since old number 10 went to victory lane. Now they're a little more selective.
Well, Bob, let me give you a real interesting long shot scenario. It just came to me. This is not something that's been talked about. Buck Baker told me that Derek Bell will be attending his school this week. He wants to kind of brush up for the IROC series, which also runs at Talladega. A man from another series, capable of going 200 miles an hour. I bet you Derek Bell could do that.
It's a good candidate. You busy next Sunday?
No, I'm going home to a sprint car race. Oh, okay. $50,000 to win at Eldora.
Okay.
Can you imagine that? $50,000 to win a sprint car race?
Well, the battle here on the racetrack, Harry Gant, Ron Bouchard, and Tim Richmond running right together out there. Again, we believe that Bouchard and Richmond may be a lap down. Harry Gant shown in 6th spot right now.
Well, Harry having one of those typical Pocono days for the Hal Needham, Burt Reynolds team. He has not exactly been at the hunt at the point, as they say on some other networks, to televise races, but he has been competitive all day long. And I still maintain my position that you just don't know what this guy has up his sleeve until you see the last 10 laps of the race. He still may be a real bona fide candidate. There you see the interval, first, second, third go by. I'm guessing that that's Waltrip. He perhaps has moved up to 4th, is what they're showing him right now, and then Harry Gant running in 5th. So there you see a real quick glimpse of the interval as Gant goes to work to the inside of Trevor Boyes in car number 49.
There are 11 cars on the lead lap. We have had 26 official lead changes among 11 drivers to this point, and 4 caution periods for a total of 13 laps. The average speed of the race is 136.398 miles an hour. Bill Elliott, however, has been in the lead for the last several laps. There is Tim Richmond in car number 27, a former IndyCar driver who has been a regular on the NASCAR circuit for the past few years. Matter of fact, a former Rookie of the Year at the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
We're looking at Tim Richmond there, Bob, and here's just a little bit of speculation as to what might be going on. You know, earlier in this race, if you've been watching, you've seen a lot of trading up positions. There's Richmond now going around Ron Bouchard, but for the most part, Gant, Bouchard, and Richmond have been in a line like beads on a chain here the last 5 or 6 laps. We've told you that Richmond and Bouchard are probably a lap down to the let's make it official. They are a lap down to the leaders, and Harry Gant is trying to keep pace with the leaders. All 3 of those cars, there's Benny Parsons right behind him, Kyle Petty right behind him, are capable of running up to the front. And it's likely that the reason why, or possibly the reasons why they're not doing so much battle among themselves, is that you can go just a little faster when you're in a draft. And maybe that's what they're doing right now. They're trying to stay in line and trying to stay up with Elliott, Bodine, and Bonnet. Not really working, by the way. Those guys are so fast, but you can run just a little faster, and normally it's a little bit safe that way, running that way on the racetrack.
We believe that Cale Yarborough is coming into the pit area. Here he is in turn number 3. He's slowed coming off of the tunnel turn and was very slow down the north straightaway. Cale Yarborough, who is in 2nd spot, is headed for the pits.
And wisp of smoke coming off at least the left header as he came around turn number 3. He pulls out to the right. He's going back to the garage.
Here's Dick Berggren.
It's a serious problem for sure. Waddell Wilson, as soon as you spoke, Waddell Wilson took his headset off. There's no excitement here at all. They are slowly wending their way to the garage, and we'll try to find Cale Yarborough shortly.
Tough break for Cale Yarborough, former winner here at Pocono, but it will not be a win for him this afternoon. The leader is Bill Elliott, and here he is about to complete lap number 128. Now, we're going to try to time his lap to see just exactly how fast he is going out there on the racetrack. Here he comes down the main straightaway, about to cross the start-finish line.
Now recall that the guys up front qualified in the 59-second bracket. 59.1 was the time for Darrell Waltrip, who sat on the pole. That was 152 miles an hour. You expect the track to slow down significantly during the running of the race. We told you earlier the sun beats down on it. Oil is deposited on the racetrack. Rubber, more often than not, helps, but it can't compensate for the excess oil and how slippery the track becomes when this asphalt heats up. So you would expect Elliott to be running significantly slower than what they qualified at, but of course, obviously, he's running faster than anybody else because with 128 laps down, Elliott right now is the guy out front.
Well, it is not a sunshiny day anymore. The cloud cover has moved in. The humidity remains very high, and it's very warm here, but the sun is not beating down as it was at the start of this race. So perhaps the track is just a little bit cooler than it was, say, 2 hours ago. Elliott crosses the finish line, and there you can see it's just a little over a minute, so he's going just slightly under 150 miles an hour. Now, here's this pack of cars involving, among others, Harry Gant and Benny Parsons. Now, we're going to try to determine if these guys are catching up to the leader, Bill Elliott, and whether or not staying together in a draft is indeed beneficial.
It may have been a bad lap to catch him on. I'm not really sure, Bob, because they were going through slower traffic, and whenever you've got 3 cars racing up against the wind, it's a lot difficult, a lot harder collision with the air than just one car slicing through. But let's see how they're doing. You can see Richmond is following Harry Gant. Harry almost shook Tim a couple laps ago, but Tim has moved back up and is content to stay behind him. Elliott, I'll tell you, that was a very quick time, Bob. I was surprised that he was within a minute and a half, or a minute .5, to be honest with you. Tim Richmond, coming over turn number 2, lost the handle for just a second. He slid way up by the cement. The draft was broken. He's just at the tail end of the draft at these speeds, so that might hold everybody back a little bit on this lap. But again, I was surprised at how quickly Elliott is winging out there all by himself.
Harry Gant is running in 5th spot, and there you can see it. He is turning a faster lap than Bill Elliott, even a lap that we thought might be slow because of the position that his car was in.
Yep, again, Bob, I got to say, wow, my eyes are wide open. Apparently it's working. That was about a second faster, at least on that turn. And more often than not, when you're together on the racetrack, as long as you can stay in line, it works. And apparently, at least at this point in the race, it's working.
Second now is Jeff Bodine. Third, Neil Bonnet. Fourth is Darrell Waltrip. And fifth, the number 33 car of Harry Gant. Tim Richmond a lap down in that number 27 machine.
You know, Bob, just for a second, touching on that Allison Sachs controversy, talking with Barry Dotson, who is the crew chief on Tim Richmond's car, there were differing opinions as to whether or not Gary Nelson's comment that, hey, that was a mule workhorse-type engine, and we were really concentrating on the chassis down at Daytona. Barry Dotson said, I believe in that 100% because that's basically what we were doing, and based on what I know about Gary, I think that is a real plausible, and I'd say 100% on the positive side is where my belief lies. Now, to be fair, there were other crew chiefs that said, nah, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of sentiment about how hard Greg drove. Greg was really going for it down at Daytona. A lot of the crew chiefs said, hey, we had to watch him very closely because we knew that he was hungry and he really wanted to win. Greg, when all was said and done, though, I got to tell you, did a very impressive job. And standing back and trying to get away from all the controversy, away from all of the conversation, I must say, Bob, that all things considered, that was a very impressive performance by that team and that driver. My hat really goes off to him.
Well, race drivers are individual, and each of them have their own ideas how they want to sit in the car and so forth, have the position of the steering wheel. And with that in mind, here's a track fact.
For most Winston Cup drivers, this would be the position on the steering column of the steering wheel. And this would be the position of their elbows, bent at about a 45-degree angle. For Tim Richmond, however, because of a concern over a lack of upper body strength, the crew has attached the wheel much closer to his chest, putting his elbows at a 90-degree angle. Now, hopefully, this will aid Tim in going the distance 500 miles around Pocono. But it also puts the wheel real close to his chest and makes for some tight quarters inside the cockpit.
The top 5 at Pocono in the Summer 500. Bill Elliott is the leader. In second position is car number 5, driven by Jeff Bodine. We'll be right back.
A car that...
Bill Elliott is the leader here at Pocono. Earlier today, live on ESPN, John Bizignano and Jackie Stewart brought you the British Grand Prix. The results: Alain Prost was the winner, Michele Alboreto second, Jacques Lafitte third, Nelson Piquet finished fourth, Derek Warwick fifth, and the final point went to Mark Schurer.
Well, the Brabhams did well. I don't know the official count, but I don't think that changes the point standings in Formula One, Bob. It just puts Alain just a little bit closer. By the way, some of the other winners in racing this weekend, you know, Kenny Schrader's in this race. He ran a modified last night. He lost to Billy Pouch, a modified with a wing, but Schrader did finish second. There was a USAC NCRA Championship Dirt Car Challenge out in Oklahoma, which, by the way, Kenny Schrader called last night. He called to the hotel back in Oklahoma as soon as he got back here to Bristol last night. Rich Vogler was the winner. Sheldon Kinzer was the fast qualifier, but NCRA won the points challenge. At South Boston, Kenny Martin calls and tells us that Jack Ingram was the winner as we look at Bill Elliott, who leads this race. Jimmy Hensley finished second. And last night at Oswego on the 5/8 mile paved, very fast paved racetrack up there, Bobby Allison and Darrell Waltrip both traveled north to compete, but Dick Trickle won the ASA portion, which Allison and Waltrip competed in, and Bentley Warren his first super modified win of the season.
The Winston Cup Grand National points. Bill Elliott has the lead with 2,306 points. Darrell Waltrip is in second position, mainly because of consistent finishes this year. Terry Labonte is third in the point standings, and there you can see 6 through 10. It could be that Darrell's philosophy regarding the points breakdown may be changing a little bit this year.
Possibly, Bob. You know, the points race, it becomes much more of a factor entering the second half of the season, obviously. But Waltrip has to feel very good about being a relatively close second to Elliott after that spectacular first half of the season. Waltrip has only won once. You wonder how Darrell feels about that point system, because in years past he was very outspoken in his feeling about race winners should have a greater points advantage. You know, if that were true, Bill Elliott would be way out in front. The shoe is basically on the other foot now, because Elliott has won those 7 times to Darrell's 1, but yet Darrell is still only 101 points behind, which means, by the way, that if Bill ever dropped out of a race early and Darrell finished in the top 3, the points would change and Darrell would be the new leader.
Darrell Waltrip is currently 4th in this race, running behind his teammate Neil Bonnet in 3rd, Jeff Bodine, who is 2nd, and the leader of the race, Bill Elliott. Now, as far as the rookie point standings are concerned, Ken Schrader is on top of that category with 173. Not too far behind is Eddie Bierschwale with 142 points. And then Don Hume, who has spun a couple of times here in this event, is 3rd in the rookie point standings with 64.
Yeah, Bierschwale has hung right in there, considering that Schrader has been a consistent top 20 competitor, at least on the surface. Without researching it, you would think, oh, gee, Schrader is way ahead. But Bierschwale's held his own. He really has stayed right in there, right on the heels of Kenny.
137 laps have been completed. Bill Elliott comes down now, crosses the line, and clicks off lap number 138. Ken Schrader, here he comes in car number 90. He's running right behind Buddy Baker in that number 88 car. There is Ken Schrader, the rookie points leader.
Yeah, the program is coming along. His best finish has been 10th this year. He's done that twice, once at Dover, once on the road course at Riverside. And the interesting thing about Kenny is he races so much. He runs championship dirt cars whenever he can. Last night, as a matter of fact, in that race out in Oklahoma, when he got back to the hotel, he called Bill Hill and he called George Schneider. They were popping beer cans for him. Of course, Kenny couldn't drink because he had to race today, but he said, I really miss it, but I am committed to this program, and it's beginning to come along.
Buddy Baker is running 10th here this afternoon in car number 88. That's the Baker Ship Liquid Rich Bullfrog Nets Oldsmobile. Buddy is 44 years of age, hails from Charlotte, North Carolina, and this is his 616th Grand National start this afternoon.
Well, he may have 19 Grand National wins, but it's been quite some time since that 20th win was coming. Buddy's had a year, I think, that has been very disappointing to him. There has been some reported conflict on the team between himself and his chief mechanic, Booby Harrington. They were apparently apart. Now they're back together. Things seem to be getting along. But Buddy has been one of the biggest stars, really, in Grand National Stock Car racing for quite some time. The year is not what he would like to have had it. His last win coming in 1983, but he's sticking with it. He is committed to this program, and he's entering every race on the trail this year, which is somewhat of a change for him. He started out the season with a couple of fourth places in the first 6 races, and it looked like he might be a consistent top 10 guy as far as the point standings go. But it just hasn't turned out that way, even though he has finished in the top 10. Oh, let's see, I think about 5 or 6 times in the first 15 races.
Well, there you can see Bill Elliott about to put another lap on Buddy Baker as they come down the main straightaway. Buddy's last win in Winston Cup competition was in July of 1983. There's Tim Richmond in car number 27, who was an early leader of this race, but has run into a couple of problems and is now at least a lap down. Here's Jeff Bodine, second position in the pit area. And it's a quick pit stop for Jeff Bodine as they change the rubber on the left side of the car, and he is going back out on the racetrack.
You know, Bob, something kind of interesting has happened in the last 20 laps. We've been taking care of some other details and researching some other stories and following up on a few. You know, Bill Elliott has snuck away from everybody. Pit stops are beginning here. There will be one more following this series. Bill Elliott has put about a straightaway between himself. There he is making this routine pit stop, lap 140, everybody. Between himself and second running Neil Bonnet and third running Jeff Bodine. Elliott quietly, he sort of snuck away. Dick Bergman is in the pits of the leader, Bill Elliott.
And Bill Elliott's making a regularly scheduled stop. It'll be right side tires. At least 1 can, probably 2 cans of fuel. Gets a wipe on the windshield, gets a quick drink. Crew's been waiting for this for some time. They knew 10 laps ago they were going to come in on this lap. So this is perfectly calm and collected, and there goes Bill Elliott.
15.5-second pit stop for Bill Elliott as he pulls back into competition. Other drivers making pit stops include Bobby Hillin Jr., Jimmy Means, and Bobby Gerhardt.
As we watch Bill Elliott go back to the board, Joe Boer, by the way, among those guys making pit stops, coasting very slowly down pit road. You can't risk it here at Pocono. If you run out of gas at Pocono, it's flat compared to most NASCAR tracks, and you just lose time if you are fortunate enough to coast all the way around back to the pit stall.
Jeff Bodine back out on the racetrack. So is Bill Elliott in the Coors Ford number 9. Buddy Baker comes in for a stop. We anticipate stops now in the next few laps by the Junior Johnson drivers, Neil Bonnet and Darrell Waltrip. At the moment, Neil Bonnet will be the leader. Here is Darrell Waltrip coming into the pits right now. Neil Bonnet is the leader because he has not made his pit stop that should be coming up in the next couple of laps. There's Darrell Waltrip's car in the pit area.
Bob, they're not going to the grill work. Apparently that thing has cooled down. They have done something, or maybe it has gone away. Maybe the very little subtle moves that they made in earlier pit stops work, because there didn't seem to be any concern over overheating on that pit stop, because if there was, I can guarantee you at least this water spray would have gone to the grill work.
Don't count Darrell Waltrip out of this race. He is driving the type of race that it seems he does every time that he has a win. He lays back in about 3rd or 4th position, and at the end of the race comes on strong and wins it. But he'll have his hands full if he's going to keep up with Bill Elliott, who has been the dominant force here for about the last 40 or so laps.
I got to tell you, Bob, I got to agree with what you're saying. Waltrip, there are a lot of good drivers running in NASCAR, and I know he's been controversial from time to time. I've said it before. I'll say it again as we look at the leader, Neil Bonnet. Waltrip is very, very good in many, many ways in a stock car.
Neil Bonnet stays out there and is the leader at the moment. Neil will have to have a pit stop in the next few moments. Kyle Petty is in for a stop. His car is smoking heavily. There's a lot of smoke coming from the engine compartment of that car, but there doesn't seem to be much concern about it. They're continuing the routine maintenance on the car with rubber on the right side, and there is Petty moving back out.
It looked like real serious oil smoke. It was real dark in color. I don't know if that was from another car that had gone by or perhaps some other debris that had been kicked up along pit road, but I agree again with you. It didn't appear as though there was any concern about that, so maybe that was from another source.
All right, let's watch Neil Bonnet now coming off of the 3rd turn to see if he will come in for his pit stop. The crew is in position and showing him the sign, but Neil stays out there. the sign indicates that he probably will be coming in next time around.
Well, he's gone 41 laps, and I suggest he's stretching it. That's over 100 miles on a 2.5-mile track. 100 miles is usually the optimum range that everybody shoots for. There's Tim Richmond coming in. He's had a good race the last 30 or 40 laps this green flag segment, but he fell out of step about 50 laps ago, and he's still digging to try and make up. He would have liked to have had a caution flag so he can make up his lap.
Right, here is Neil Bonnet, still at speed on the racetrack in the tunnel turn, just going over it now onto the North Straightaway, which is 1,780 feet in length. You don't want to run out of fuel at this racetrack because there is no banking on it except for the first turn, and it's a long way from the pit area. So you don't want to run out of fuel because it's almost impossible to get back to your pit area. Here he is off of the third turn, moving to the inside, diving to the pit area. Dick Berggren is in position to call this pit stop by our leader, Neil Bonnet.
Bonnet's on his way in now. He has waited longer than the majority of competitors, the object of which is he is going to have a fuel advantage by so doing. Now, the other guys that came in earlier, they're already burning up their fuel. Bonnet hasn't even got his yet. Now, there may be also a little bit of psych strategy involved here. They went out with a board a lap earlier. Tim Brewer made it look as if they were going to come in. They did not, and Bonnet is gone in a hustle.
14.4-second pit stop for Neil Bonnet. Now the lead goes to Harry Gant. But Harry has not made his recent pit stop, and he will be coming in soon. There he is on the backstretch.
Well, of course, under a green flag, you can change all 4 tires if you want to. But in that particular case, did you notice that Neil Bonnet changed left side tires only? Rather unusual. Normally you would expect them to go to the right side because in most instances, they get most of the abuse on a racetrack. But they went to the left sides. We've seen other drivers do that in the past and seen it work. Here comes Harry.
Now makes the pit stop. By the way, his win that you just saw on the screen came at the Martinsville racetrack. His win in 1985. Now he's making a pit stop here at Pocono. And the crew also going to work on the left side of this race car.
Harry Gant, who has won over $2.2 million in his career, 7 wins in his 204 career starts, 63 times, or about a clean 1/4 of the time, almost 1/3 of the time, he has finished in the top 5. Has he had a successful Grand National career? Yeah, this former home builder from down in the middle of North Carolina, I think is the epitome of what racing really all about. He paid his dues in the minor leagues, had a big chance. It was extended to him by Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds, and he's made the most of it.
Certainly not a bad pit stop, but a little bit slower than the other leaders. It was just over a 16-second stop for Harry Gant. That gives the lead back to Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Georgia, in the number 9 Coors Melling Ford. Back with more in a moment. Stay with us. The Junior Johnson cars are doing quite well here this afternoon, despite the fact that Bill Elliott is leading this race. The Junior Johnson cars are running 3rd and 4th. Bonnet is 3rd, Waltrip 4th. Here is Junior Johnson in the pit area.
And I'm with Junior. And Junior, first of all, early in the race, Darrell Waltrip encountered what looked to be a slight heating problem. The question is, has that been resolved?
Yeah, he was running hot when the race first started, and we had to, run him a little while like that before we could do anything about it. And then when we finally did get something done about it, I think it's damaged his motor to the extent he don't have the power that he did have.
All right, the other question about Neil Bonnet. He ran the wick out as far as he could on that last pit stop. Is that an indication that maybe you're going to make him go the distance without another stop?
I don't see how. He's got something over 50-some laps to go, and that's big tough here.
How tough is it to maintain your knowledge and your understanding and also be involved with 2 cars that are running 4th and 5th?
Well, it's pretty tough right now. We're getting outrun by one of them. It's according to where you're standing at, but I think both of our cars is, it's running about as good as you can expect them to. They're both pretty equal when the race started, and they've showed that all day long. Right now, we're just getting handled pretty rough by Bill Elliott.
Seems like he's always talking about Bill Elliott.
Well, Bill Elliott has been the chaser, or the chasee, I should say, for most of the season, as a matter of fact. Now we're back in the Lake Speed car, and he is currently in 13th position, 1 lap down. Now we haven't seen the in-car camera in the last few laps, mainly because the helicopter that we told you about earlier that has to pick up the signal from the car had to stop for a refueling. And it's such a long race here that the helicopter just cannot go the entire distance without a refueling stop. But we're back now in the Lake Speed car.
Did we time their pit stop?
I'm not sure.
Here is Lake moving up on, I believe that's the number 60. Who is that, 64 car? Yeah, that's Clark Dwyer. Yeah. He's moving to the inside of. Lake taking a look down on the inside of Clark. Now he'll go around him on the long stretch. You see the grandstand? We are right up there, right about there, as Lake goes by on the inside, looking back at the tower and the grandstand here in the front stretch. Clark Dwyer lets Lake slip by, and Lake heads off into the sunset. As you can see, it's beginning to get relatively late in the afternoon, about 4 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time here in the Pocono Mountains. It's been a really nice day, really, for the spectators. Maybe a little more humid than what they would like, but a nice day for racing. And they've seen a pretty good show up to now. But Bill Elliott is threatening to make this look like a runaway, Bob.
He sure is. You know, the sun has come back out also in the last 20 or so laps, making it a little bit hotter than it was earlier. There's Lake Speed running in 13th position in that number 75 Nationwide Auto Parts car. Well, the statistics at this point in the race show that there have been 30 lead changes among 11 drivers, 4 caution flags, and those were for Don Hume's spin twice, once on the 34th lap and once on the 48th lap. We also had a spin by Bobby Gerhardt, and the most recent yellow was brought about by a spin down in turn number 1 by Doug Hebron. Average speed of the race with Bill Elliott leading 138.051.
Well, Bill Elliott is one of the 10 people who have won in 15 Grand National races here at Pocono, so the wins have been sped around pretty well. But interestingly enough, they've been pretty much sped around by veterans, although the few people who have not won, who have been veterans, have been kind of surprise wins. They've been breakthrough wins. Tim Richmond won here once. Harry Gant won one of his very early Grand National wins right here at Pocono. So it's been an interesting racetrack. You can see the average speed after 150 laps, about 138 miles an hour. It has solidified because we've had spaced caution flags, but everybody's been running pretty strong. We've been under green.
This is Bill Elliott's 162nd career start, and what a year he has had so far. Larry Newber had an opportunity to talk with him earlier.
You know, a year ago, you expressed almost lament that you didn't know what you could do to win a race. Do you think you have become a better race driver in the last 6 months?
I feel like I've matured some as a race driver as far as knowing what I want at the racetracks, and that's one thing that really helps you. Each racetrack you go to, if you know kind of what you're looking for, then you got half the battle won. You don't always get it. You know, just like you come in, you qualify, or whatever you do, sometimes you don't get exactly what you're looking for, but 9 times out of 10 you get it worked out for the race. So sometimes somebody's got something a little bit better, but 9 times out of 10 you can stay pretty competitive with that type attitude.
47 laps to go here in this Summer 500. Elliott is the leader. There are 7 cars on the lead lap at this time. Back with more live coverage in just a moment. This summer, from July 26th through the 4th of August, we present over 35 hours of competition from the U.S. Olympic Committee's National Sports Festival. It's the 6th edition of this event, which showcases the best American amateur athletes. Nearly 3,000 expected to compete this year. It's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it starts Friday, July 26th, live on ESPN. I remember when the National Sports Festival was in Indianapolis a couple of years ago. Boy, what a spectacle. It's a great undertaking for ESPN to bring you all the coverage of it.
Bob, when they had that event in Indianapolis, it was cited as the best ever in history up to that point. And I think it really brought a lot of attention that was heretofore lacking to amateur sports, and it really set up the Olympics that we saw last year. The Amateur Sports Festival, primarily because of the great reception the city of Indianapolis gave to all the amateur athletes, has become a major event in the sports world in the United States of America.
Here at Pocono, we have completed 156 laps, and Bill Elliott is the leader. Jeff Bodine second. Third is Neil Bonnet. Fourth is Darrell Waltrip. Fifth is Harry Gant. Sixth, Benny Parsons. Seventh is Kyle Petty. Eighth is Tim Richmond. 9th is Ron Bouchard. 10th is number 66, Phil Parsons. Now, here is the interval between first and second. There is Bill Elliott coming off the third corner. We're waiting to pick up Jeff Bodine. There he is. As they cross the line, we will determine that it's about a 2.5-second lead now for Bill Elliott. The question is, can Bodine catch Elliott? Well, perhaps we can get some information on that from Dick Berggren, who's with Harry Hyde.
In addition to those first 10, Bob, that you just ran down in no necessary order, here are some of the people that are still on the racetrack. Kenny Schrader, Buddy Baker, Lake Speed, we've seen him many times. The number 51 car continues out on the speedway. Doug Herbert, of course, driving there. Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, Bobby Wawak, Joe Boer, Rick Newsom in car number 20, Lenny Pond in car number 17. Car number 49, Trevor Boyes, Terry Labonte way in the back, Jimmy Means in 52. And the number 96 car, that's the Will Cronkite car. That car is being driven by Cronkite car. I'll get it out yet. Is being driven by Jerry Bowman this weekend here. Bobby Gerhart still on the race, and car number 64, Clark Dwyer.
Jack Arute picking up some interesting stories from the pit area. Jack.
What you're looking at could be conceived or construed as taking a drug test that most athletes in other sports take. This is a fuel test, and it looks like it's an ongoing effort by NASCAR to control the fuel and the additives that are going in these machines. Now, they've been going up and down pit road. They've gone to Elliott. They've gone now to Bonnet. They're going to all the front runners, and they're taking fuel out of these cans. They're going to take it back to their chemistry lab. They're going to analyze it, and we could hopefully see some more improvement on this fuel question that was precipitated yesterday by Jeff Bodine.
Very interesting goings-on down there. Jeff Bodine certainly can't feel picked upon because of his little controversy with NASCAR, because they're checking just about everybody this afternoon.
Solid, Bob. I really like to see that. It really is the neutralizer, and what's fair is fair, and that's a good move.
Once again, the interval between first and second position. And it is widening out considerably now as Jeff Bodine is dropping just a little bit off the pace. It was about 3.5 or 4 seconds just a few laps ago, and now it's up to almost 10 seconds. That's the lead that Bill Elliott has on Jeff Bodine.
Now, let me remind you, the last time we were here in June, this car right here was painted white and yellow and numbered 5. It was Jeff Bodine running away from everybody and dominating this race. We had a yellow flag inside of 20 laps from the end of the race, and they just never got the setup back. It didn't turn out to be Jeff Bodine at the very end. So even though Elliott right now certainly looks like he's in the driver's seat, no pun intended, it could be anybody's race, particularly if we have to prematurely slow this race down or maybe have a yellow flag before the race is over. One more pit stop will be retired.
A crash up in turn number 1. It's a Tim Richmond involved. You can see the skid marks going up to the outside boilerplate wall, and now the car stalled in the middle of the racetrack.
Interesting, Bob. We're at lap 160 coming up. Now, everybody's going to check their charts very carefully. Can we go the distance with the mileage, with the fuel, full load of fuel that we could get right now? Probably. It would be very unlikely if somebody couldn't go, because 40 laps equates to, let's see, 80, 100 miles, so everybody should be able to do it. Richmond moving around in the cockpit. It looks like everything is okay with Timmy, but hopefully all the crews have checked carefully, because we're right at the edge, the 100-mile mark for a load of fuel.
A replay of what happened up there. You can see the car just now making contact with the outside wall and then stopping in the middle of the racetrack.
Yeah, no way of telling what happened. We picked it up just at the end of it, but Timmy staying in the race car, making sure that everything is okay, waiting for the emergency crews.
Well, speaking of pit stops, the Junior Johnson boys have been in, Waltrip and Bonnet, so has Harry Gant. So pit stops are being made under this 5th caution flag of the day as we cover live for you the Summer 500. At Pocono International Raceway, where Tim Richmond is very disgustedly out of the race car and looking for, it looks like, a way back to the pit area. He thought he was going to get a ride on the wrecker, but they apparently are insisting that he step into the ambulance so they could check him over for injuries. Doesn't look like the Tim Richmond, however, was injured in that crash up in turn number 1.
Just feelings.
Well, Saturday, July 27th, ESPN delivers exclusive live coverage of the 1985 Haskell Stakes featuring Kentucky Derby winner Spin the Buck. It should be an exciting race, the 27th of July from Monmouth, New Jersey.
Wonder how long it'll be, Bob, before we see another Triple Crown winner. Remember, there was one back in 1948. It took us 25 years before we got another one. And each year, you know, horse racing seems to become like racing, more and more competitive. And it may be a while before we see something else come along that can win all 3 of the Triple Crown races.
Pace car is out onto the racetrack. Boy, he hit the wall pretty hard. I didn't realize that there was as much damage to the front end of that race car, but there is a considerable amount. Let's go down to the pit area once again.
Well, here's the deal, gentlemen. This caution is very opportune for all of the front runners. Now, if we go the distance without another caution, some of them, and I repeat, some of them could indeed go the distance without another fuel stop. Remember, we had Neil Bonnet stretch it the last time around. Well, it could be another case of who's got the gas for the last 2 laps here at Pocono. Another interesting sidebar down here on pit road. We talked to Ernie Elliott and to George Elliott. Just walked up and said, hey, guys, how's it going? It looks kind of like the thing last time over here. And they both got a little perturbed and said, nah, the car just ain't running the way we want it to. And I said, well, you're leading. What do you mean? He said, I said, is it engine? Is it handling? What? He says, let's just say that it's just not running the way we want it to.
Well, I don't know how it can run any better. It's in the lead and looking good.
To quote Bobby Allison, you can say whatever you want when you're victory lane.
It's going to take a while for us to clean up this accident involving Tim Richmond. So while we are under yellow and while there is no racing on the track, we'll take this break and be back with Pocono. 29 cars remain in this race. There are 7 cars on the lead lap. Elliott the leader. Jeff Bodine running second. The question is, can Jeff catch Bill Elliott? Well, let's ask him.
Jeff, this is Larry up in the broadcast booth. It's been a while since we talked to you. Got a reading on us?
That's going pretty good. It's been getting a little wild out here once in a while, but it's been a good race, a fun race. We're having a little trouble right now with our brakes. And Bill Elliott's running strong. Neil Bonnet, Waltrip. It should be a good finish.
Bill, the last time here, the roles were reversed. You dominated this race. Elliott, or rather Jeff, you dominated this race, and Bill laid behind. But after the last pit stop, he came out of the bushes and beat you. Can you reverse the tables on him this time, Jeff?
Well, I'm saying a little prayer right now to Lord up above to help me. I sure do need some help right now. We'll just have to wait and see how things look now. We're pretty happy with the way the Exxon Levi gas cars run, but we're going to try to get in front of that 9, 12, and 11 if we can.
Well, stay green the rest of the race, and that doesn't mean grass. That means go.
That means go, and that means money.
Benny Parsons is running in 6th position. Benny, this is Bob Jenkins up in the booth. How's your race going so far? You're running 6th at this point.
Well, Bob, when we started, the race car was very, very good. But we haven't been able to get on that combination for the last couple hundred miles. It's decent, but it just isn't good enough to beat these guys.
Is it a tire problem? Is it a handling problem? Is it a motor problem? Or do you know at this point?
Oh, it seems to be a handling problem.
Benny, you think Bill looks strongest out here this afternoon?
Looks real. I don't know. They've been having a little race of their own up there. I haven't been... He did check out the last time, I think, so he probably can again.
All right, Benny, keep it straight out there.
Thanks, Bob.
Benny Parsons running in 6th spot. We're still under yellow as the cleanup down in turn number 1 is continuing because of the Tim Richmond accident. Tim's okay, but a lot of damage to that race car. Back with more from the Summer 500 after these messages. We are back at Pocono, and some Richard Petty fans are in the infield saluting us as the #1 sports network, and we appreciate that. In the in-car camera, Lake Speed is on the front row, so to speak. Right alongside him is the leader, Bill Elliott, and we'll stay with the in-car camera here as we go back to green in about a half a lap.
Yeah, Lake is one of those cars that is at least a lap down, so he gets the front of the inside row should he elect to take it, and of course Bill Elliott on the outside. You know, we've been talking about the setup just for the technically minded in the crowd. These cars, most of them will run springs rated at about 1,200 pounds on both sides of the front end. How that relates to the pleasure car home in the garage, those are normally rated about 175, 200 pounds all the way around. You run a lot lower rated springs in the back. You can't change them during the running of the race. The way you shift the weight around the race car, of course, is those weight jacks, and every time you make a 360-degree turn on one of those jacks inside the race car, it's usually worth somewhere between 25 and 50 pounds as applied to that corner of the car on the track.
The Nationwide Auto Parts Pontiac, driven by Lake Speed at the head of the field as we get the green flag, and we are back to racing. You see Neil Bonnet going around on the outside as Lake holds his position going into turn number one.
Oh, no, they're going to touch. Oh, they're still together. The dust from the quick dry, the Tim Richmond incident, and a sneaking by on the inside, Neil Bonnet.
Bonnet grabbing the lead here in corner number one on the restart as Bill Elliott made contact with another race car in the first corner. Now they go down the Long Pond straightaway, 3,100 feet in length, and there is Benny Parsons moving to the inside of Lake Speed.
Well, there is a second-place car, Bill Elliott leading third, running number 5, Jeff Ledine. Darrell Waltrip is fourth. Harry Gann is right there. So is Benny Parsons. Boy, that was an excellent vantage point of that incident going through the turn number one. You can see Elliott and Bodine coming very close together. Just outstanding. That's a view that you don't get to see too often.
Look at the serpentine action coming down the straightaway as some of the drivers attempt to break the draft. Neil Bonnet on the point here at Pocono with 167 laps completed. Well, we'll replay what happened last lap as Bill Elliott was bumped in turn number one.
You see Bodine sliding out just almost maybe touching Bill Elliott, and Neil Bonnet saying, hey, there's one lane here. Actually about 3/4 of a width of a car wide, but it's enough for me to get through. And he darted down low and got through on the inside.
Well, Neil Bonnet has been lying back in the field here for the last several laps, but now finds himself in the lead once again. But Bill Elliott is in pursuit and closing the gap, trying to go back into the lead. Jeff Bodine staying in third position. Now Elliott closes right up on the back bumper of Neil Bonnet coming off of turn number 3. Let's see if Elliott makes a move here on the long main straightaway. Not this time. Bill Elliott staying right behind Neil Bonnet, though, in the draft as they come down once again.
And look at the train of cars coming down the long front stretch. You give up a little bit of speed when you set the car up. Most of them are running with 391 gears here at Pocono, and it does keep the RPMs down just a little bit on the top end. The reason for that is that right here at this point on the racetrack, the Long Pond straightaway, turn number 2, you have to handle so well, you have to have so much power coming through this part of the racetrack, which makes up more than half of the racetrack. If you count these two little straightaways and the second turn and the third turn as well as the first turn, you're in bumps and turns so much that you need more power on the short straights. On the long straight, drafting takes away some of the advantage that the more powerful cars might have. So you don't worry so specifically about that long stretch. You worry about those two straightaways and the corners here.
Very difficult race track to set up a race car for. Most everybody sets up their car for the third turn, but you have to make compromises when you run at Pocono. Once again, this line of cars down the main straightaway into corner number 1 once again.
Well, you work up to almost 8,000 RPMs just before you touch the brakes going into turn number 2. I don't know if you touch them or if you really classify it as cramming on the brakes. I guess it depends on where you're at on the racetrack and who is around you, but it's a delicate touch that the driver has to have with his feet as he enters turn number 1. This is not road course racing. There's no shifting, of course, that goes on. The idea is to keep the RPMs up as high as you can without losing some ground because you have to slam on the brakes or slow down suddenly.
Well, you heard the report from Jack Arute not too long ago about the concern in the Elliott pit that the car just wasn't running like they wanted to run. And Bill right now making no effort to challenge Neil Bonnet for the lead.
Well, there are the two leaders. You see Jeff Bodine running in 30s, about 2 car lengths behind. Darrell Waltrip is 4th in the basically white car, number 11. Benny Parsons is in there. Harry Gant. The first 6 guys are staying together on the racetrack. Elliott and number 12, Bonnet, are not able to shake the other 4. Now, it looks at this point like the number 9 car of Elliott might be running just a little quicker than everybody, and maybe Neil Bonnet is holding back the other 4 cars, 5 if you throw in Elliott. Have to wait and see. Elliott's car running not to peak perfection according to the team, but it still looks a little quicker than Neil Bonnet, at least right now.
And, of course, Bill Elliott is still in the running for the $1 million bonus if he can win the Southern 500 over Labor Day weekend at Darlington, South Carolina. ESPN will be there for that race live Labor Day weekend, and we'll want to pay particular attention to Bill Elliott's performance in that race.
There is the in-car camera again. You can see all the streaks of oil and water that has splashed up on the windshield. It can get very dirty out there. Now, there was some debris out on the racetrack from the Tim Richmond incident, and some of that debris that has made its way to the windshield of Lake Speed may be the result of that. There's one other theory about those first 6 cars as we continue to watch from inside of Lake Speed's car. He's following Ronnie Bouchard, by the way. Remember, we told you that with 40 laps to go, that you're right at the edge of what you should normally expect to get in terms of fuel mileage, 100 miles. It's possible those first 6 cars are kind of staying in line, staying in a draft, with the hope of conserving just a little bit of fuel. All of them figure like it might be just a little bit close, so it might be wise to be content, to be a little settled for the next 10 laps or so, and then go to racing after that.
Very good point. I don't think you can consider any of those first 6 cars that are running up right there with each other out of the race. There is Lake Speed working that wheel in turn number 2. You can see the tremendous effort that it takes to steer a race car around the track for just 1 lap, and multiply that by 200, and you can see that race drivers really are athletes, you know it?
Yeah, they really are. You know that hose, Bob, that's coming in front of our picture every now and then? You can see it's fastened to Blake's helmet. It's like a spaceman. Well, not really. That is like a cool hat. What it actually is, there's a magic box, that's what we call it, in the way inside of that car, and then exchanging ions, making them from negative to positive, or positive to negative. I'm not sure which one it is, but all I know is that when the air goes into the box, it's superheated, and when it comes out of the box, it's cooled down to what we would normally recognize as room temperature. It flows through the helmet, keeps Lake's head cool during the running of the race, and it really is a nice invention, and it's a very interesting invention for Grand National Stock Car Racing.
We have a car smoking very badly over in the second turn. That's Bobby Hillin Jr., who had a great starting position here this afternoon and had run up into the top 15 most of the day, but now Hillin's car is smoking badly, and Bobby is slowing that car on the North Straight.
He really did have a good day, Bob. There's young Bobby Hillin, and everybody is coming into the pits. The yellow flag is coming out. This could be interesting.
Boy, look at these pit stops here. Everybody came in together. They were running side by side. There's Neil Bonnet.
Waltrip is pitting in the second lane. There wasn't enough room. He stopped 1 whole lane off the pit wall, and they're actually out in the middle of the pit lane executing this pit stop.
Bill Elliott's crew working on that car on the left side. Rubber being replaced on the left side of Neil Bonnet's car also. He gets out. Darrell Waltrip is the first. No, Jeff Bodine is the first out. Then Waltrip, then Bonnet, then Elliott, then Benny Parsons, then Harry Gant.
Well, eliminate the question of fuel. As we like to say, all bets are now off. Everybody can certainly go the distance. They can go as fast as they want. This will be a speed demons race now. Whoever is the fastest is going to show it. We've got about 25 laps to go. And right now, the fastest man looks like he'll be the one who will win.
Our 6th caution flag of the afternoon has come out because of an apparent blown motor on Bobby Hillin's car. We'll be right back with more from Pocono International Raceway. Richard Petty may have also developed a problem during this caution period. The car was smoking very badly a few minutes ago. Doesn't seem to be now. Any idea?
Well, they had the hood up earlier in the show, Bob, and maybe he's coasting. No, he does look like he's under power. It just looked like something maybe tagging on the inside of that motor. No real specific ideas. He's definitely under power, that's for sure. And my guess is that he'll try and just limp that thing home. Told you that's an experimental motor, and for Richard Petty, it's another long, long day.
Harry Gant in car number 33 may be the leader of this race. We're trying to get the official word from NASCAR scoring. I think perhaps Harry's in second position, although I don't know really at this point. I think Harry is the leader.
Well, actually, Bob, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference at this moment until they move everybody up to the front of the line and do that two-abreast restart. And as we saw, Harry will be up there, Jeff Bodine will be up there, Neil Bonnet will be up there, Darrell Waltrip will be up there, Benny Parsons, and who have I missed?
Bill Elliott.
Bill Elliott. Oh, yeah. The guy who's won all the races this year, yeah. So all 6 of them will be up there, and they've all made the adjustments, whatever they could at this point. You know, sometimes these crews change tires or save tires for the last pit stop. The best set of tires that they feel as though they have are saved for the last pit stop. That was probably done the last time. There's the in-car camera with Lake Speed once again on the head of that 1 lap plus behind line. He'll start this race right up front again. But the best tires everybody had probably were put on the last lap. Now, to call them best, that's really a subjective call, because the tires, for the most part, are pretty evenly matched. They all come out of the same mold. But everybody's had a chance to make their last adjustments now.
Only 25 more laps to go here, and before we went caution for this blown engine on Bobby Hillen's car, the average speed of the race was 134.897 miles an hour. The average speed will drop because of this caution period. There you can see the crews putting the oil dry down on the racetrack. Let's go down to Jackaroo.
We might have seen what we could call a domino effect, at least that's issue 1, and that sequential pit stops, first by Neil Bonnet, then by Bill Elliott, and then, of course, Darrell Waltrip. And as you pointed out, Bob, Waltrip was in the outside lane. Well, the question is, that's because they kept backing up as they pitted. You know, first car came in, and then the next one tried to pull in, and then, of course, Waltrip was the third. But on the exit, when the jacks were dropped, that gave Waltrip the advantage. Now, the question, we're not trying to point fingers anywhere, kind of interesting that it's a Johnson car, then Elliott, then another Johnson car.
All right, Jack, thank you for the report from the pit area. There is Junior Johnson, along with the other members of the crew, watching their drivers, Neil Bonnet and Darrell Waltrip. Well, the $10,000 for the leader at the halfway point went earlier today to Neil Bonnet. We'll be right back. You can see a recap of this race today, yesterday's ARCA race, and several others around the nation this weekend when you join us Thursday evening at 7:30 on ESPN for Speed Week. Not only the latest results from the world of auto racing, but rumors and all kinds of news will be included in Speed Week Thursday evenings at 7:30 here on ESPN.
Maybe a chance to one more time look at that Bodine Elliott move going in the first turn, that last green flag. That was pretty thrilling, I got to tell you.
Harry Gant is the leader of the race, although we are under yellow, and we have 7 cars that are on the lead lap, and any 7 of those capable of winning this race. Harold Kinder, the official starter for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, indicates to the drivers as they come down that they will receive the green in 1 more lap.
Bob, good point. 7 cars on the lead lap. Kyle Petty, right at the top of your screen right now, you can just barely make out the red number 7. It's got a blue and white hood. He's kind of the forgotten man in this mix. The first 6 have been so dominant. Kyle and the Wood brothers have done an excellent job. Really terrific job staying on the lead lap today. There he is on your screen going into turn number 1. He's got an outside chance. Now, you never know. Remember how much Jeff Bodine setup went away the last time we were here? Maybe Kyle Petty's setup will come to him that much during this last leisure yellow flag pit stop. Interesting case. They've done a terrific job, though.
Lake Speed with our in-car camera is at the head of the pack. The leaders beside him. There is Harry Gant, who is lining up on the right side of Lake Speed's car. Harry in that Skoal Kmart Bandit, owned by Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds.
Looks like he's driving down the highway,
yeah,
doesn't he? You can tell Harry is really tense at this moment of the race. You know, these things really get to your nervous system when you're a veteran driver.
Cars are entering the tunnel turn, a half a lap away from the resumption of racing here. We are in our, let's see, our 6th caution period of the afternoon. This one brought about by Bobby Hillen Jr.'s blown motor. Now, those cars that are a lap down, in 8th position, Ron Bouchard. 9th is Phil Parsons. 10th is Buddy Baker. 11th is Lake Speed. 12th is Bobby Allison, and in 13th is Lenny Pond. Those cars 1 to 2 laps down. Now, we'll be turning our in-car camera around and showing you how things look out the rear end of Lake Speed's Nationwide Auto Parts car when we get the green flag.
23 laps remain. So for one thing for sure, what you got to show right now. Drafting is not that big of a factor on this racetrack, so this should be a race for speed for these final 20-plus laps.
Here they come. The green flag flies, and we are back to racing at the Summer 500. There's the shot from Lake Speed's car looking out the rear window. The Junior Johnson cars are on his outside. Darrell Waltrip and Neil Bonnet both pass Lake as they go into turn number 1. Benny Parsons also right there alongside Lake Speed's automobile. Now Harry Gant, Jeff Bodine, and Darrell Waltrip come out of turn number 1, running 1, 2, 3 on the racetrack.
Next couple laps are going to be very interesting. Let's watch closely, see who has the best setup. There's Bodine moving up, going down the Long Pond backstretch. There are the leaders who have now gone by and got in front of the in-car camera. You see Lake Speed moving up right on Bill Elliott's tail, and Lake moving to the inside as they come out of turn number 2, I believe it was, getting a little bit of advantage. There goes Bill. Ricky Rudd is right up there. Ricky very close to Bill Elliott. Ricky was among the leaders in the lead lap earlier, but some misfortune has knocked him more than 1 lap behind.
Don't count Harry Gant out of this race either. He moves through the outside of Darrell Waltrip and goes into second place momentarily. Look at the racetrack being used by Neil Bonnet and Darrell Waltrip as Bonnet shot to the inside of the racetrack and got very low here on the main straightaway.
That was a real impressive move. Bonnet went way down out of the groove and said, hey guys, watch this. I can make this thing go fast anywhere on this racetrack. I'm going to beat all of you other than Bodine into the first corner. Bonnet is probably trying to get to the front because he thinks Elliott is coming. Watch Neil Bonnet drive as hard as he can to try and get around Jeff Bodine and try and put some distance between himself and the predicted Bill Elliott, who has not made his way into the picture yet, still about 100 yards behind.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, he is in 6th position.
Jeff Bodine, number 5, Neil Bonnet in number 12, Darrell Waltrip in car number 11 with his problem solved. Harry Gant about 3 car lengths behind in 4th spot in car number 33. Benny Parsons among the first 6, and once again, Bill Elliott stalking.
179 laps have been completed. Horsepower, very important to Neil Bonnet. Dick Berggren talked with him earlier.
How close are you in the power department? My motors are super. JV Ranger builds my engines. I'm tickled to death with them. We keep throwing him a curve all the time. He keeps coming right back with a lot of hard work and giving me good motors. We abuse them all the time. They stay together, and if we ever lose one, it deserves to go because we're punishing them pretty bad.
Grand National racing at its best here at Pocono. There are 7 cars that are capable of winning this race here with now 20 laps to go, less than 20 laps to go. Jeff Bodine leading, Neil Bonnet right behind, trying to move to the inside as they go in the north straightaway, and Bonnet goes inside and passes. Jeff Bodine for the lead.
Oh, and Bodine says, nothing doing, Mr. Waltrip. I'm second. I'm holding on to the spot.
Oh, and Waltrip squirrely in turn number 3, but hangs on. Harry Gant moves to the inside of Darrell Waltrip and takes over 3rd. Here comes Bill Elliott right along, too.
Bonnet and Elliott trying to draft away, Bob.
Benny Parsons also mixes it up in a 6-car battle.
Gant slides through. Gant is now 3rd. Here's Bill Elliott on the inside. Elliott is now in 4th. He slips in front of Benny Parsons. Bodine is trying to help himself as well as Neil Bonnet. And look at Bonnet. Outpull Bodine, at least at this point on the racetrack and at least for this lap. Bodine, or rather Bonnet, really showing some muscle.
It's just unbelievable how these cars can be running right together on the racetrack after 181 laps around a 2.5-mile tri-oval, but we are set up for an unbelievable finish here at Pocono. The leader comes off of corner number 2, and here is the replay.
Watch Neil Bonnet go to work on Jeff Bodine, 150-mile-an-hour plus. It goes without saying. Let's watch it. It's trust. That's all it is. Pure, hard trust.
As Bonnet moves to the inside, he couldn't have missed Bodine's car by more than a few inches.
And Jeff pulled right down in front of Darrell. Darrell saw him coming, gave him the room, and that worked out pretty fine, too.
Here they come down the main straightaway once again. It's Bonnet, Bodine, Elliott, Gant, Waltrip, and Benny Parsons in that order.
Kyle Petty has not been able to come up and dice with the first 6. We thought maybe he could, but it's just not right there. They've done that terrific job today, staying in the lead lap, but Kyle remains in 7th position. Ronnie Bouchard has recently gotten around Kyle, as a matter of fact, but he is in 7th position on the racetrack.
Yeah, Ron is a lap down, so Kyle hangs on to that 7th spot, despite the fact that Bouchard did pass in the last couple of laps. We stay up front with the leaders. Here they are.
Well, Kyle Petty, Bob, has had a 2nd spot. There is Kyle right in front of our camera car, Lake Speed. He's had a 2nd spot this year already at Talladega, as a matter of fact. And there is Kyle from Lake Speed's car as Kyle continues to run in 7th position. He had a 5th earlier this year at Rockingham. He's also had a 3rd at Dover. And a 5th, as a matter of fact, the last race at Daytona.
Down once again, headed into turn number 1. The laps continue to tick off. We have less than 17 to go in this 200-lapper here at Pocono.
Well, Neil was not able to shake Jeff, and they've been not able to get away from Elliott. Elliott suddenly emerges as, once again, the fastest car visually at this moment on the racetrack. Now, it's a matter of driving. Can Neil Bonnet and Jeff Bodine, showing their athletic prowess, hold back the apparently faster-running Bill Elliott?
Elliott's so strong this year on the NASCAR Winston Cup Trail, but right now entrenched in 3rd position, following Jeff Bodine and Neil Bonnet. Bonnet once again gets into the dust just a little bit on the inside of the 3rd turn. 184 laps have now been completed. We'll be back with our live coverage from the Summer 500 after these messages.
This is...
The battle continues on Pocono International Raceway in the Summer 500. Neil Bonnet, Jeff Bodine, and Bill Elliott still running in that order, but now it's time to pick the winner. And let's go to first our esteemed reporter in the pit area, Jack Arute. Who's going to win?
Well, because I get to pick first, I'm going to go with the guy that's first right now. I think Neil Bonnet's been holding back just a tad. He's had some good gas mileage. He's running real strong. I think the only thing that could let Neil Bonnet down is Neil Bonnet himself, and we'll find out in a few laps.
All right, now down to the other end of the pit area. How about you, Dick?
I think Jack's wrong. I think Jeff Bodine's going to win this. I think he wants to vindicate himself for the last race and also for the fuel thing. I think you're going to see Jeff Bodine in victory lane. Larry, what do you think?
Sentimentally, I would go with Jeff Bodine. I'd like to see him vindicate himself, as you say, Dick, after what happened last time. But I think that the number 9 car is showing more horsepower. I go with Elliott.
Well, Robert? I'm going to have to agree with you, Larry. I think that Bill Elliott will be the winner here this afternoon, but I've written these predictions down, and I won't forget them.
Well,
so,
nobody
guys,
picked Waltrip.
Stand by for your opinions. Neil Bonnet, by the way, is the consensus in the truck, our ESPN control truck downstairs. And now it's time for you people at home to place your bets and try to find out or try to guess who's going to win this race.
Call this 800 number. Every one of you send 50 cents to my home address. No, I'm just kidding. Well, you know, nobody picked Waltrip, and suddenly he is a factor, Bob. He has stayed with the draft. He is right behind Bill Elliott. The 4 of them have kind of outdistanced themselves in front of Harry and Benny. The 2 school cars have fallen back, and the first 4 cars, 3 beer cars, 1 tobacco, look like they're going to go at it for the win. Bonnet is doing a picture-letter perfect job so far. You can see the technique that he's using as he goes around the racetrack. He stays down low. He doesn't make any mistakes. He knows if he slides up a little higher, then normally he can pass on the low side here at Pocono, particularly going into number 1. You really got to pinch it low. In number 3, you got to stay low, but also keep your speed up because it's very possible to sneak around on the outside. Bonnet has been doing a very good job. Jack, you are right. That car is handling very well, and Neil is really showing us a lot of moxie right now.
Nobody picked Darrell Waltrip, who is running 4th right now. Nobody picked Harry, who is 5th, and nobody picked Benny, who is in 6th position. So according to us, the winner will come from the first 3 positions here.
Now, what you do if you are Bill Elliott, if indeed you think you are the fastest car, you kind of lay back and wait for a second, because if you take a chance on going around Bodine and you miss, Waltrip might sneak in there. Now, Jack, a route down on the pit. Jack, you got a different viewpoint. By the way, Bodine is looking at the inside of Neil Bonnet as we go to you, Jack.
Well, Jeff Bodine is running very strong, as you said, gentlemen, and it's a good dice for the lead. But
Jeff got him, by the way. Jeff got him.
Okay, it's 188 laps, so a lot of this right now is sparring back and forth, testing, looking for the advantage. And the thing that we've noticed from down here is the way they're zigzagging back and forth across the racetrack.
Not only are they zigzagging, Jackie, they're bumping each other. There was another slight collision between Bill Elliott and Neil Bonnet in turn 1.
But everybody's straight now. And here comes Waltrip. Suddenly Waltrip is runner-up, and here comes Bonnet trying to get Elliott back.
The positions are changing. Jeff Bodine now has the lead. Darrell Waltrip second. Elliott third, and Neil Bonnet drops back to 4th spot. Let's take a look again at this bump down in turn number 1, Elliott and Neil Bonnet.
Now, Bill is on the inside. Can he stay low enough? Yeah, low enough, and maybe a little too low. You see, he goes off the racetrack, and it throws him off rhythm, and he slides up, I think, a little bit into Neil Bonnet. Sometimes it's hard to tell unless you're in your cockpit. Big smoker looks like Richard Petty pulling in the pits off turn number 4.
Car smoking very badly. Richard Petty is smoking badly coming into the pit area. We saw this smoke several laps ago, and now it looks like that Richard is going to come in and perhaps drop out of the race.
Well, he's carried as long as he could, Bob, and I think the bottom just fell out on the grocery sack.
There's Petty stopping in the pit area. The crew looks the car over. They're raising the hood on it, but it appears to me to be a terminal problem with that STP Pontiac. So we continue with less than 11 laps to go now. Any one of 4, 5, or 6 drivers can win. Stay with us. Welcome back to Pocono International Raceway. Bill Elliott has gone into the lead. It occurred in corner number 1. He went to the inside of Jeff Bodine and passed him, went into the lead. Bodine now falls back to 2nd spot. 3rd is Darrell Waltrip, and 4th is Neil Bonnet. 5th is Harry Gant. 6th is Benny Parsons.
Oh, Jeff Bodine giving it all he is worth. You saw him sliding on in turn number 2. He held on. He didn't really lose much ground at all. Darrell Waltrip stays right there. They're both about 2 car lengths behind Bill Elliott. Neil Bonnet is right on Darrell Waltrip's back bumper. A really interesting race, but Bill Elliott really did a fine job. I got to tell you, he drafted down the long front stretch and outbreak the rest of the field. Well, the rest of the field, Jeff Bodine going into turn number 1.
Another interesting situation has developed back of these cars. Benny Parsons has found his little brother, Phil. And perhaps Phil in car number 66 can assist Benny in drafting and catching the leaders.
Well, Harry Gant is sandwiched in there. He's just to the left of the picture screen. He is 5th. Benny is 6th. Phil is a number of laps down. And I got a feeling that with the way the first 4 guys took off, probably, Bob, they're stuck about where they're going to be for the rest of the race. The first 4 guys are obviously dominating this. Harry can't catch up, and Harry's been able to inch his way very carefully away from Benny. And Benny looks like he's intended to go for a very, very well-deserved 6th.
Well, it's been a good race for Benny. He started from 4th position and has been up front all day, right now in 6th spot. And you can see the interval between himself and the leader, so he isn't a threat to taking the lead at this point, but anything can happen here in the next 7 laps. 193 complete, 7 laps to go. Elliott is your leader.
Well, there's Neil taking a look to the inside of his teammate, Darrell Waltrip, thinks the better of it. Elliott is not necessarily knocking him dead, but you notice he is creeping away. The interval is now about 3.5 car lengths. He did an excellent job of driving to get up there, and he's doing an excellent job of consistency of staying out there. He is not all that powerful to the rest of them when they're in the draft. You know, they're getting a little bit of a more emphasis and more horsepower from that. But Elliott is just doing a very steady, consistent job, and just ever so slightly, every lap seems to get just a little further away. You can see Jeff again sliding sideways out of turn number 2, but doing an excellent job of holding on to that car.
Well, the finish is coming up here in 6 more laps, so we will take this break and be back to show you the conclusion of this exciting Grand National event from Pocono.
Would you like?
Now back with just 5 more laps around this 2.5-mile trioval, and the Summer 500 will be history. Elliott, the leader, followed by Jeff Bodine. Neil Bonnet has passed his teammate Darrell Waltrip and moving into 3rd. Waltrip back to 4th, then Harry Gant, and Benny Parsons. The other car on the lead lap is Kyle Petty in car number 7. Now, 8th, 9th, and 10th. 8th is Phil Parsons, 9th is Ron Bouchard, and 10th is Buddy Baker.
Jimmy Means still out there. Trevor Boys as the leaders just go around them. Bill Elliott, number 1 in points and number 1 in dollars won so far this year.
Here once again is Jack Aruch.
We're down here in the pits with the Coors Melling team and Ernie Elliott. Ernie, before you said the car wasn't running the way you'd hoped it would. Are you a little more satisfied now?
No, the car's just not running at all, Jack. You know, he's just having to work himself to death in the corners. The car just won't run down the straightaway. You know, right now I think we're just...
Whoa, something that's happened on the racetrack. We'll let you get back to what you're doing. Let's go down to Dick Bergeron, who's with the second place crew chief.
I'm with Harry Hyde. He's Jeff Bodine's crew chief. Harry, can you run down the leader? Can you win this thing?
Well, I don't know. If we've got a little brake problem. It seems like the front brakes are gone. They've been gone for about 150 miles now. And I don't know. We'd have to have a little luck. Jeff's running very well. He's handling good. He feels good. But I think we'd have to have a little luck now to pass Elliott. Maybe Jeff's got a little something left. I don't know. But our brakes are our big problem right now. We've used them up, I think.
And brakes are very important here at Pocono Speedway.
You know, sentimentally, and this is taking absolutely nothing away from the great performance that's been turned in by Bill Elliott today, but Jeff has had some, what you might say, is tough luck the last 2 races here at Pocono. Well, let's go back down to the pit area and go to the Junior Johnson pit.
And he's watching 3rd and 4th positions where his cars are running. Junior, what about it? Can you close? Can you maybe get this win?
Jackie, I don't think so. I think that they are going to try to make a run on Bodine, but I don't believe they can make a run on Bill because he's just too strong. Where he really beats us is right down this long straightaway, and if you beat him back over here in these turns, you might be lucky, but I doubt it.
Well, time's running out for Junior Johnson. Only 3 laps to go, but Neil Bonnet has just moved into 2nd place.
You're right, Jack. As a matter of fact, Darrell Waltrip has also slipped around Jeff Bodine, so Junior is exactly right. His cars are making a shot at Jeff Bodine, and they have accomplished that goal, but now the job is to catch Bill Elliott, and Bill appears to be stretching it out over 2nd, 3rd, and 4th position.
Bob, it's a double-edged sword as we look at our speed shot there between turns 2 and turns 3. Here they come, or rather off of turn 3. Here they come off of turn 3 down the front stretch. I really think that Neil might have just won the race for Bill Elliott. That trio had moved up on Bill Elliott the last lap. But when Neil pulled up alongside of Jeff and followed by Darrell, it slowed the trio down and it let Bill get another car length or 2 on the last lap. But they had closed within 3 car lengths going into the first turn. But Neil had to take the chance. He's going for 2nd at least. He had an opportunity to get around Jeff, and so he took it. Now we see him opening up about 2 car lengths over Darrell. Doesn't look like there's enough. A lap and a half to go for him to catch Bill Elliott, but he might have won the race for Bill when he broke from formation to try and get around Jeff, which was successful.
27 cars are still running, but we're concerned basically with 4 at this point. There is the interval now between 1st and 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Bodine moving to the outside of Darrell Waltrip in turn number 3, trying to take back 3rd position. Jeff will dive to the inside, coming off of turn number 3, and Waltrip takes him right down to almost the apron of the racetrack. Now they still battle for the spot going into turn number 1. The white flag has come out. We're on the last lap of the race. Bodine and Waltrip battle for 3rd spot. Waltrip is to the inside, and Bodine is high on the racetrack. It looks like they may have touched once again in turn number 1. Here they come off of corner number 1 onto Long Pond straightaway for the final time this afternoon. Look at Jeff Bodine and Darrell Waltrip go fender to fender out there and wheel to wheel. Into corner number 2, Waltrip grabs back 3rd position. Up front, it continues to be Bill Elliott's race with Neil Bonnet running 2nd. There is Elliott approaching turn number 3 on the final lap of the race. He dives that car to the inside of the racetrack. Now comes off of turn number 3. He can see Harold Kinder with the checkered flag in hand. Here comes Bill Elliott. He wins the Summer 500. Neil Bonnet finishes 2nd. The battle for 3rd goes to Darrell Waltrip by just a few inches over Jeff Bodine.
Boy, that was a thing of beauty. That battle for 3rd position It's really too bad. It's one of those cases, it's too bad that somebody had to not get it. That was just an excellent job of race driving by two thoroughly professionals. Just outstanding. I know that Bill Elliott won. Neil Bonnet finishes second, obviously doing good jobs, but that last lap, that third position battle between Jeff Bodine and Darrell Waltrip is just beautiful.
Bill Elliott has won the Summer 500 here at Pocono. And despite the fact that the crew said the car just wasn't performing as it should have, by golly, Bill walks off with the victory anyway. Well, let's take a look at this battle for third position as they came down off of corner number 3. Waltrip leading at this point, Jeff Bodine.
Well, Jeff looking to the inside, to the outside, back to the inside. Says, okay, my chances go to the outside. He tries to keep the momentum up as much as he possibly can. He's got the momentum, but there's just not enough time before the start-finish line.
Just about a half a car length. Third place goes to Waltrip, and Jeff Bodine is fourth. We'll be back to talk with Bill Elliott, the winner, in just a moment. Bill Elliott has pulled into victory lane, and Jack Arute is there to talk with him.
And Bill Elliott is just wiping the 500 miles of dirt and grit off his face. Bill, first of all, a hearty congratulations. A good run this afternoon.
Well, I tell you what, nobody give me that race. I never worked so hard in my life trying to get by everybody.
Throughout the afternoon, Ernie kept saying in the pits the car wasn't right the way he wanted it. What was really wrong with it, Bill?
I just couldn't get off of corners. And, you know, when I did get out in front, I was getting through the corners good enough that I could make some ground on them. But if ever was right there, boy, they could tear me up. And I knew the best thing I could do was try to get by them and catch traffic and do what I could to stay in front. And I got by them and got them to racing, and that's all that saved me.
What about that kind of racing? Is that fun for a driver, even though the pressure's on you? Is that the way you want to perform?
I love it. I guarantee you that's the way to go.
Well, this is another one on a long windscreen. It looks really incredible. Bill Elliott, you've turned your year around. I remember 1 year ago right here at Pocono, things were really down and out for the team. What's the key that turned it all around for you, Bill?
You know, I really don't know. Everything started working toward the end of last year, and then one thing led to another, and we worked hard over the winter. You know, and then we got things worked out, and we were kind of going pretty good right there, and then a couple of rule changes kind of messed things up again. You know, we still hadn't got the car back like we want it to be, but you know what, they can't say it didn't work for that today.
No, indeed they can't. Let's go back upstairs from Victory Lane back to the tower.
All right, Jack, and our congratulations from the booth to Bill Elliott. The Winner's Circle interview has been brought to you by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. We'll be back to check with the second place finisher and have some post-race comments.